The rain hammered against the restaurant windows like it wanted in. Ava Bennett stared across the table at possibly the worst human being she'd ever had the misfortune to meet, wondering how her assistant had thought this setup was a good idea. Her date, Chad, was mid-sentence about his boat when the waiter appeared at her elbow and said something that made no sense. "If I were you, I'd stay." She turned, ready to snap at the interruption, but something in his eyes stopped her cold. He wasn't looking at her the way people usually did, with recognition of her name, her company, her Forbes 30 under 30 feature. He was looking at her like she was about to make a mistake. Before she could think better of it, she heard herself ask, "Why?" And that's when the check came. The one her date had already paid. For one. Want to know what happens when a CEO discovers the man pouring water knows more about life than anyone in her boardroom? Drop a comment with your city below and hit that like button. This story goes places you won't expect. The restaurant was one of those places that tried too hard. Edison bulbs hanging at calculated intervals, exposed brick that probably cost more to install than the original walls, menu items with descriptions longer than wedding vows. Ava had suggested somewhere simpler, but Marissa, her assistant, had insisted this place was Seattle's hidden gem for first dates. Hidden from what? Ava couldn't say. The place was packed with the Thursday night crowd, voices layered over the kind of jazz that made conversation difficult. "So yeah, the boat's a 42-footer, the man across from her was saying. Craig. His name was Craig. She'd checked her phone under the table twice to remember. "I usually take her out to the San Juans on weekends. You ever been?" "Once," Ava said, "for a corporate retreat." Craig made a face like she'd admitted to never having tasted chocolate. "That doesn't count. I'm talking about really experiencing it. You know, just you in the open water. Well, me in the open water. You could come if you wanted." He said this like he was offering her a kidney. Ava reached for her wine glass and found it empty. She'd been nursing the same pour for 20 minutes, trying to make this bearable through small sips and forced politeness. The waiter, dark hair, quiet movements, maybe mid-30s, appeared before she could signal. He refilled her glass without asking, didn't make eye contact, disappeared. "Anyway," Craig continued, "the maintenance alone runs about $3,000 a month, but that's the price you pay for quality. I always say, if you're going to do something, do it right. Half-ass gets you nowhere." Ava wondered if he could hear himself, if this was how he talked to everyone, or if he'd saved up his most impressive achievements for tonight. She checked her watch. They'd been here 37 minutes. That felt like enough. More than enough. "I'm actually a really good cook too," Craig was saying now, somehow shifting topics without her noticing. "I do this thing with scallops that'll change your life. Got the recipe from this chef in Tokyo. Well, not from him directly, but I watched him make it. You just have to know the right temperature. Most people overcook them." "Craig," Ava said, setting down her glass, "it's actually kind of scientific. The proteins—" "Craig." He stopped mid-sentence, looking mildly offended that she'd interrupted his lecture on molecular gastronomy or whatever this was. "I think I'm going to call it a night," Ava said. She kept her voice level, professional. The same tone she used in board meetings when someone pitched an idea that would never work. "I appreciate you meeting me, but I don't think this is—" "Wait, seriously?" Craig's face did something complicated. Confusion mixed with disbelief, mixed with the beginning stages of anger. "We just got here. It's been almost 40 minutes. "Yeah, but—" He looked around like the restaurant might back him up. "I took time off work for this. Marissa said you were looking for someone serious." Ava felt her jaw tighten. "Marissa said a lot of things, apparently." "Oh, look. If this is about the boat stuff, I was just making conversation. I'm a well-rounded person. I read books. I donate to charity. I've got a great career in tech sales. I'm talking top performer 3 years running." "I'm sure you are." Ava reached for her purse. "So what's the problem?" The problem was that Craig hadn't asked her a single question all night. The problem was that he'd told her about his boat, his cooking, his career, his workout routine, his thoughts on real estate investment, and his opinion on why Seattle was going downhill, all without pausing long enough to wonder if she might have thoughts of her own. The problem was that Ava had spent the last 3 years building a software company from the ground up, fighting for every dollar of funding, every employee, every product feature, and she'd sat through this dinner listening to a man explain to her how business worked. But she didn't say any of that. "No problem," Ava said. "Just not a match. I'm sure you understand. Craig's expression shifted then, something colder settling in. Right. Yeah, I get it. You're one of those career types. Too busy to actually connect with someone. Ava stood up. I'll get my own check. Already paid for mine, Craig said, pulling out his phone like she'd suddenly stopped existing. Might as well stay and finish your wine. I'm not waiting around. He was up and moving before she could respond, weaving through tables toward the exit without looking back. Several people glanced over at the commotion, then quickly away. Ava stood there for a moment, anger and embarrassment fighting for dominance. She wasn't sure which was winning. The waiter appeared again, this time with the small black folder that meant the bill. He set it down carefully, and that's when he leaned in, voice low enough that only she could hear. If I were you, I'd stay. Ava turned to look at him properly for the first time. He had the kind of face that didn't demand attention. No sharp angles or model features, just steady and calm. Dark eyes that seemed tired but kind. The name tag on his shirt said Ethan. Excuse me? She said. Ethan straightened up but didn't step away. Your check's in there. Or his check, technically. He paid for one meal, just his. The anger that had been simmering went to a full boil. You're kidding. I wish I was. Ethan's voice was carefully neutral, like he'd had this conversation before. Different people, same situation. He ordered the steak, the appetizer, 2 drinks, asked for the check about 5 minutes ago, paid for his portion, left a 4% tip. Ava opened the folder. Sure enough, there was a bill for 1 entree, 1 glass of wine, 1 salad. $47 plus tax. Her meal. The math hit her like cold water. That absolute... She stopped herself, aware that half the restaurant could probably hear her if she wasn't careful. He knew he was doing this the whole time. Probably. Ethan hesitated, then added, For what it's worth, you're the 3rd woman he's done this to. What? He comes in every couple months. Different date each time. Same routine. Big talk, early bill, quick exit. Ethan picked up Craig's empty glass. We've got a betting pool going in the back about how long before one of his dates throws a drink at him. Ava couldn't tell if she wanted to laugh or put her fist through a wall. And you just let him keep coming back? He pays his part and tips terribly, but technically he's not breaking any rules. Ethan's expression softened slightly. That's why I said you should stay. You look like you could use a real meal, on your own terms this time. Something about the way he said it, no judgment, no pity, just straightforward observation, took the edge off her anger. Ava sank back into her chair and looked at the half-empty wine glass, the untouched bread basket, the menu she'd barely glanced at while Craig performed his one-man show. I should just go, she said, but she didn't move. You could, Ethan agreed. Or you could order the salmon. It's actually good tonight. Chef's in a decent mood, which doesn't happen often. You're really selling this place. I've been selling this place for 3 years. I've learned to be honest about it. Ethan pulled out his order pad. What do you think? Ava looked up at him. There was something disarming about his directness, the way he wasn't trying to manage her emotions or tell her how to feel. He was just offering her a choice. The salmon, she heard herself say, and another glass of wine. Better than this one. I'll bring you the Willamette Valley Pinot. Pairs better anyway. Ethan scribbled something down. Anything else? Yeah, what's your name? He tapped the name tag. Ethan. I mean your full name since you apparently know enough about my evening to warn me about it. Ethan Cole. He met her eyes. And I didn't know about your evening, just about him. Fair enough. Ava held out her hand. Ava Bennett. Ethan shook it. His grip was firm but not aggressive, the handshake of someone who'd spent time in professional environments. Not what she expected from a waiter, though she immediately felt guilty for the thought. She'd watched her own assumptions play out enough times to know better. I'll put this order in, Ethan said, pocketing his pad. Try to enjoy the music. It's terrible, but it's supposed to be. Ava smiled despite herself. That's definitely not what the manager wants you telling customers. Good thing he's not here tonight. Ethan picked up Craig's plate, the one with half a steak still on it. Nobody should waste a good ribeye on bad company. He left before Ava could respond, navigating through the dining room with the kind of efficiency that came from repetition. She watched him go, then pulled out her phone. 3 missed calls from Marissa, 2 texts asking how it was going. Ava typed out a message. Never set me up again. Ever. Then she deleted it and wrote instead, not a match. Thanks anyway. The restaurant was starting to empty out as the dinner rush ended. Ava hadn't noticed how loud it had been until the volume dropped to a manageable level. She could hear the rain now, steady against the windows. Seattle in March, 50-50 chance of precipitation, 100% chance of gray. She'd grown up here, left for college in California, come back to start her company. Sometimes she wondered if that had been the right call. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, her CTO, with a question about tomorrow's investor meeting. She typed back a quick answer, then another when he followed up. This was her life. Constant motion, constant decisions. Even sitting in a restaurant alone, she was working. Salmon, Ethan said, appearing with a plate that actually looked worth $47. And the Pinot. The smell hit her first. Lemon and butter and something herbal she couldn't quite place. Her stomach reminded her that she'd skipped lunch for a product demo that had run long. Thank you, Ava said. Ethan nodded and turned to go, but she stopped him. Wait, can I ask you something? Sure. How'd you know? When he looked confused, she clarified. That I should stay. You said that before you even brought the check. Ethan was quiet for a moment, considering. I've been watching tables for a long time. You get pretty good at reading people. Your body language changed about 10 minutes in. You went from politely interested to strategically planning your exit. He never noticed. Kept talking. When he got up, he had this look like he'd just won something. That's usually when I know. Know what? That someone's about to have a bad night for no good reason. Ethan shrugged. Figured I'd try to make it less bad. That's pretty much the job anyway. Before Ava could respond, someone called for him from across the room. Another table needing something. Ethan excused himself with a small, apologetic gesture and headed over. Ava watched him go, processing. The salmon was excellent. She ate slowly, letting herself actually taste the food instead of just consuming it while multitasking. The wine helped. The music, terrible as Ethan had promised, somehow became less offensive once she stopped fighting it. She answered 2 more texts, checked the weather forecast for tomorrow, and wondered why Marissa thought Craig would be a good match. Had she actually talked to him first? Or just gone off his online profile, which probably featured at least 3 pictures of that stupid boat? How was it? Ethan was back, clearing her plate. Better than expected, Ava said honestly. Your chef really was in a good mood. I'll let him know. He'll pretend not to care, but he will. Ethan set down a small dessert menu. On the house if you want it. Manager's policy for customers who've had unusually terrible dates. But that's a policy? It is now. I just decided. Ava laughed, the first genuine laugh she'd had all evening. You know what? Sure, whatever you recommend. Chocolate pot de crème. It's the only dessert here that isn't trying too hard. Unlike everything else about this place? Unlike everything else about this place, Ethan agreed with a slight smile. He left again, and Ava found herself watching the kitchen door, waiting for him to come back. Which was ridiculous. He was just being nice, doing his job. Probably felt sorry for her sitting alone after getting ditched by a man who'd spent 40 minutes talking about boat maintenance. But there was something about his steadiness, his dry humor, the way he talked to her like she was a person instead of a potential tip or a networking opportunity. The dessert arrived with 2 spoons. That's for you, Ethan said, setting down the second spoon. I'm on break in 2 minutes. Mind if I sit? Ava blinked. Here? Unless you'd prefer I stand awkwardly nearby. No, She gestured at the empty chair. Sit, please. Ethan sat down and immediately looked less like a waiter and more like someone who'd just finished a long shift. He rubbed his eyes, stretched his shoulders, seemed to shed the professional courtesy like a jacket. Long night? Ava asked. They're all long. Ethan took one of the spoons and tried the dessert. But yeah, we were understaffed, someone called out, and the kitchen's been chaos since 6. This is the first time I've stopped moving in 4 hours. You don't have to spend your break with me. I know. Ethan met her eyes. Figured you might want some normal conversation after whatever that was with Captain Boat Guy. Craig. His name was Craig. Of course it was. Ethan took another bite of chocolate. Let me guess. Tech guy? made a bunch of money young, thinks that makes him interesting. Sales, actually, but otherwise accurate. Ava took her own spoon. How'd you know? Seattle, it's either tech or coffee or something outdoor related. Nobody else can afford to eat here regularly. He said this without judgment, just observation. Plus the whole thing about doing scallops the Tokyo way. That's a tech bro move. Ava couldn't argue with that. My assistant set it up. She means well, but her taste in men is questionable. You're being generous. I am. Ava studied him. So what about you? What's a guy who can read people that well doing waiting tables? And before you get defensive, I'm genuinely asking. Ethan's expression shifted. Not closed off exactly, but more careful. It's flexible. Pays the bills. Lets me be there for my daughter. You have a daughter? Lily. She's 6. Something in his voice changed when he said her name. Got warmer. She's with my neighbor tonight, Mrs. Chen. Lily's probably teaching her how to make paper airplanes or explaining why dolphins are better than whales. Ava smiled. Strong opinions on marine life? The strongest. Last week she wrote a letter to the aquarium about their whale shark tank being too small. She's right, but still. Ethan finished the dessert, set down the spoon. What about you? What brings Ava Bennett to terrible blind dates on rainy Thursday nights? You know who I am? Should I? I mean, Ava stopped. Most people in Seattle tech circles know my name. I'm not in those circles, Ethan said simply. Just serve people who are. It was oddly refreshing. Ava had spent so much time being Ava Bennett, CEO of Luminary Tech, that she'd forgotten what it was like to be just Ava. My assistant thinks I work too much. She's trying to force balance into my life. Is she right? Probably. But building a company doesn't leave a lot of room for balance. What kind of company? Educational software. We make learning tools for kids with different processing styles. ADHD, dyslexia, things like that. Adaptive interfaces that meet them where they are instead of forcing them to adapt. Ethan's expression changed. Real interest replacing polite conversation. That's actually useful. You sound surprised. Most tech I hear about is solving problems nobody actually has. An app to tell you when your plants need water. A service that delivers artisanal ice. Someone's really doing that? 2 tables over, earlier tonight. Guy spent 20 minutes explaining his business model. Ava laughed again. Well, our problems are real, at least. Doesn't mean we've solved them yet. We're still burning through runway trying to figure out how to scale without compromising what makes the product work. Runway? Funding. We've got about 8 months left before we either secure Series B or start cutting positions. Ethan nodded slowly. That why you look stressed? I look stressed? Like someone who's holding up a building with their bare hands and afraid to admit it's heavy. Ava sat back. Nobody had described it that clearly before. Marcus would say she seemed tired. Her board would say she needed to delegate more. Her mother would ask if she was eating enough. But Ethan had seen what it actually was. The weight of keeping everything moving. The fear of what happened if she stopped. It's that obvious? She said quietly. Only to someone who's been there. Ethan checked his watch. My break's over. I should get back. Right, of course. Ava reached for the check folder, but Ethan waved her off. Already taken care of. Consider it an apology on behalf of terrible Seattle men everywhere. You don't have to. I didn't pay for it. I just told the manager what happened. He's got an ex-wife and 3 daughters. Gets real sympathetic about guys like Craig. Ethan stood up, and Ava felt an unexpected reluctance to let the conversation end. Which was stupid. She didn't even know this man. He was a waiter who'd been kind during a bad evening. That was all. Thank you, she said, for everything. You turned this night around. All I did was bring you food. But Ethan smiled when he said it. Though if your assistant tries to set you up again, maybe suggest somewhere less expensive. Craig types love places where they can brag about the menu. Noted. Ava gathered her things. Maybe I'll just focus on work instead. That's one approach. Ethan picked up the dessert plates. Or you could find someone who asks questions instead of giving TED Talks about their boat. You see a lot of those? More than you'd think. Less than we deserve. Ava stood, pulled on her coat. The restaurant was nearly empty now. just a few lingering tables and the staff starting their closing routines. The rain had picked up, hammering harder against the windows. "Do you need me to call you a car?" Ethan asked. "You're going to get soaked. I'm parked 2 blocks away. I'll live." But Ava hesitated at the door, turned back. "Ethan?" He'd started clearing another table but looked up. "Yeah? If I come back here sometime, for actual dinner, not a disaster date, would that be weird?" Something crossed his face. Surprise, maybe? Or uncertainty? "Why would it be weird?" "I don't know. Professional boundaries or whatever." "I serve people food. They eat it and leave. If you want to be one of those people more than once, that's pretty normal." He set down the dishes he'd been holding. "Friday nights are less chaotic if you're asking." "I wasn't asking." "You kind of were." Ava smiled. "Maybe I was." She left before the moment could get more awkward, pushing out into the rain that immediately soaked through her coat. Her car was right where she'd left it, which felt like a small miracle in this neighborhood. She sat in the driver's seat for a moment, watching the rain blur the windshield, thinking about the evening. Craig had been terrible. The setup had been a disaster, but something about the last hour, sitting across from someone who spoke honestly, who didn't need anything from her, who'd shared chocolate and conversation like it was the simplest thing in the world. That had been good. Ava started the car and pulled into traffic, already thinking about work emails she needed to answer before tomorrow. But part of her mind stayed in that restaurant, wondering about Ethan Cole and why a man who could read people that clearly was content pouring wine and clearing tables. She'd probably never know. It wasn't her business anyway. He had his life. She had hers. And they'd intersected for one brief evening because she'd ignored her instincts and agreed to a blind date with a man who owned a boat he wouldn't shut up about. Her phone buzzed at a red light. Marcus again, this time with good news about tomorrow's presentation. Ava typed back with one hand, already shifting back into CEO mode. By the time she reached her apartment, Ethan Cole had become a nice memory, a bright spot in an otherwise frustrating night. She didn't expect to think about him again. She definitely didn't expect to see him again. She was wrong about both. The investor meeting Friday morning went better than Ava expected, which meant it went barely okay. 3 hours of presentations, demos, and carefully worded answers to questions about user acquisition costs and market differentiation. The lead partner from Cascade Ventures kept circling back to the same concern. How could Luminary Tech scale their personalized approach without diluting what made it effective? Ava had given her best answer 4 different ways, but she could see the skepticism in his eyes. They wanted hockey stick growth. She was offering sustainable impact. Those things didn't always align. "We'll be in touch," the partner said at the end, which was venture capital speak for "don't hold your breath." Marcus caught up with her in the hallway outside the conference room. "That could have been worse." "That's your assessment? Could have been worse?" "I'm an optimist." Marcus pulled out his phone, already checking messages. "They didn't say no. That's something." "They didn't say yes either." Ava pressed the elevator button harder than necessary. "We need this funding, Marcus. 8 months isn't enough time to prove the model works at scale." "So we find another investor. There's money in Seattle. All chasing the same things, AI chatbots, crypto projects that'll be dead in 6 months. Meanwhile, we're trying to help kids learn, and nobody wants to hear about margins in education tech." The elevator arrived. They stepped in with 4 other people, killing the conversation. Ava checked her own phone. 2 texts from her mother asking about dinner this weekend, 1 from Marissa apologizing again for Craig, 3 emails flagged urgent that probably weren't. She answered the work ones while Marcus scrolled through his own inbox. They'd built Luminary Tech together 3 years ago, right after Ava's previous startup had been acquired by a company that immediately gutted everything good about it. She'd sworn then that the next thing she built would actually matter. Marcus had followed her because he believed in the mission, or maybe because he knew her well enough to understand she'd do it with or without him. Either way, they were in this together. "Dinner tonight?" Marcus asked as they exited into the lobby. "Celebrate not completely bombing?" "Can't. I've got product reviews until 7, then I promised myself I'd actually leave the office at a reasonable hour." "Reasonable for normal people or reasonable for you?" "Somewhere in between." Ava pulled her coat tighter against the wind that hit them the moment they stepped outside. "I'll see you Monday. Try not to work all weekend," says the woman who will be answering emails at midnight. He wasn't wrong. Ava watched him head toward his car, then walked the 3 blocks to her own office. Luminary Tech occupied the third floor of a converted warehouse in Pioneer Square. Open floor plan, standing desks, the kind of space that looked good in recruitment photos but got cold as hell in winter. 15 employees, all brilliant, all underpaid compared to what they could make at Amazon or Microsoft. They stayed because they believed in what they were building. That belief had an expiration date, though, and funding determined how long it lasted. The afternoon disappeared into code reviews and user testing reports. Their latest prototype for the reading comprehension module showed promising results. Kids with dyslexia were processing text faster with their adaptive font system. But promising wasn't enough. They needed overwhelming. They needed numbers that made investors forget their concerns about scale. Ava's phone buzzed around 6. Her mother again. She'd been calling more lately, ever since Ava's father's health scare last month. Nothing serious, the doctor said, but enough to remind everyone that time kept moving whether you paid attention or not. "Hi, Mom. Did I catch you at a bad time?" Ava looked at her screen, 17 browser tabs open, 3 documents in progress, coffee gone cold 2 hours ago. "No, it's fine. What's up?" "I wanted to confirm dinner Sunday. Your father's making his pot roast." "I'll be there." "And maybe don't work Saturday? You sound tired." "I always sound tired." "Exactly my point." Her mother paused. "How was your date last night?" Ava had forgotten she'd mentioned it. "Terrible. The guy was a nightmare." "Oh, honey, I'm sorry. Was he rude?" "Among other things. He also stuck me with my half of the check after talking about his boat for 40 minutes. "His boat?" "Don't ask." Ava closed 2 of the tabs she wasn't using. "It's fine. I'm done with dating for a while. Marissa's officially banned from setting me up." "You can't give up completely." "I'm not giving up. I'm just focusing on work." "That's the same thing." Her mother's voice got that quality it did when she was about to give advice Ava didn't want. "You're 32 years old building a company, which is wonderful, but you're also allowed to have a life outside of work." I have a life. Work friends and board meetings don't count." Ava rubbed her eyes. "Can we not do this right now?" "Fine, but I'm bringing it up again Sunday." Her mother softened slightly. "I just want you to be happy, sweetheart. The company's important, I know that, but it can't be everything." They talked for a few more minutes about nothing important. Her father's garden, her brother's new job in Portland, whether the rain would ever stop. Normal family things that felt distant when Ava was neck-deep in quarterly projections and user retention metrics. By the time they hung up, it was almost 7. The office had emptied out around her, just the cleaning crew working their way through the floor. Ava saved her work, shut down her computer, and kept her promise to leave at a reasonable hour. Her apartment was 15 minutes away in Capitol Hill, a 1-bedroom she'd bought back when Seattle real estate seemed expensive but manageable. Now it was worth double, and she still barely spent time there. Most nights she worked until she couldn't see straight, ate whatever was in the fridge, and crashed for 5 hours before starting again. But tonight she'd promised herself dinner. An actual meal, sitting down, not standing over the sink eating takeout from the container. She changed into comfortable clothes and stood in her kitchen trying to remember the last time she'd cooked anything that required more than a microwave. The fridge offered yogurt, string cheese, 3 LaCroix, and something that might have been lettuce once. The freezer had ice and a bag of coffee beans she'd bought with good intentions. That's how she ended up back in her car, driving toward the restaurant district, telling herself she was just hungry and had limited options. It had nothing to do with Thursday night, nothing to do with Ethan Cole's dry humor or the way he'd read the situation and decided to intervene. She was hungry. Friday night, Ethan had said Fridays were less chaotic. She'd said it as a joke, kind of. He'd heard it as a question, kind of. Neither of them had been entirely wrong. The restaurant looked different on a Friday. More couples, more laughter, music that was equally terrible but somehow less offensive with a different crowd. Ava got a table by the window, declined the waiter's suggestion of their special, and ordered the salmon again because at least she knew it was good. "Creatures of habit," a familiar voice said. Ethan stood there with a water pitcher, that same tired but kind expression from Thursday. He wore the same uniform, same name tag, but something about seeing him again made Ava's pulse pick up in a way that felt ridiculous. "I liked it," she said, going for casual. "Figured I'd come back. On a Friday. Like someone maybe suggested. Pure coincidence." "Right." Ethan filled her water glass. "Well, the salmon's still good," Chef's in an even better mood tonight. His son got into college. That's great. Yeah. Though now he won't shut up about tuition costs. Ethan set down the pitcher. You want that same Pinot? Sure. And maybe some honesty about why the music here is consistently awful. Owner's nephew is a DJ, thinks he's discovering underground artists. Mostly, he's discovering why they're underground. Ava laughed. A couple at the next table glanced over, then went back to their conversation. The restaurant had that Friday energy, people decompressing from their week, looking forward to 2 days of not thinking about work. Ava couldn't remember the last time she'd felt that way. Long day? Ethan asked. Is it that obvious? You've got that look again. Building holding up bare hands. Investor meeting this morning went about as well as expected. Which means not great? Which means they'll think about it and probably pass. Ava took a sip of water. It's fine. We'll find another option. Ethan nodded but didn't push, didn't offer hollow reassurance. He just listened, which somehow felt more valuable than advice would have. I'll put that order in. Try not to solve the world's problems before your wine gets here. He left, and Ava watched him move through the restaurant the same way he had Thursday. Efficient, aware, like he was tracking 6 different conversations at once. A couple flagged him down, asked about dessert options. He rattled off 3 choices without checking notes, made a recommendation, moved on. Natural and competent in a way that made Ava wonder again why he was content here. The wine arrived first, then the salmon. Ava ate slowly, checking her phone less than usual. Marcus had sent her a draft of Monday's presentation for their product team. She skimmed it, sent back 2 suggestions, then put the phone face down on the table. Her mother was right about one thing. She did need to unplug sometimes, even if she was terrible at it. How is it? Ethan appeared to clear her plate. Consistent. I'm starting to trust your chef. Don't tell him that. He'll get insufferable. Ethan picked up the dishes. You doing anything else tonight, or is this the extent of your Friday excitement? This is pretty much it. I was supposed to work late, but decided to be responsible and leave at 7. 7 on a Friday. That's practically a vacation for you, isn't it? Ava smiled. How'd you guess? 3 years of watching people. You get good at spotting the workaholics? Ethan shifted the plates to one arm. Not judging. I've got a 6-year-old at home who considers 8 p.m. bedtime a human rights violation. We all have our things. How is Lily? Still writing letters to the aquarium? Something in Ethan's expression shifted, surprised that Ava had remembered. She's moved on to the zoo, thinks the elephants need more space. She's not wrong, but I'm pretty sure we're going to get banned from every animal-related institution in Seattle. Sounds like she's got strong convictions. That's one way to put it. Ethan glanced back at the kitchen. My shift ends in 20 minutes. If you're still here and want company, I've got nowhere to be. Lily's with Mrs. Chen doing some kind of art project that I'll be cleaning up tomorrow. Ava should have said no. Should have finished her wine, paid, gone home. She had work to do, emails to answer, Sunday dinner with her parents to mentally prepare for. A million reasons to not sit in a restaurant making small talk with a waiter she barely knew. Sure, she heard herself say. I'll wait. Ethan nodded once, not smiling, but not quite neutral either. Then he disappeared into the kitchen with her dishes, leaving Ava to wonder what exactly she was doing. 23 minutes later, Ethan reappeared in street clothes. Jeans, a worn black jacket, boots that had seen better days. He looked younger out of the uniform, or maybe just less confined by it. He grabbed 2 waters from behind the bar and slid into the seat across from her. So, he said, you came back. I was hungry. You could have gone anywhere. I like the salmon here. Ava. She met his eyes. Okay, fine. Maybe I wanted to see if Thursday was a fluke. If you were actually that direct, or if I imagined it. And? Jury's still out. But she smiled when she said it. Ethan took a drink of water, seeming to consider something. Can I ask you a question that might be too personal? You can ask. I might not answer. Why'd you really agree to that date with Captain Boat Guy? Ava groaned. Are we calling him that now? I'm calling him that. You can call him whatever you want. Fine. Craig. His name was Craig, and I agreed because my assistant ambushed me and I was too tired to fight back. She thinks I'm lonely. Are you? The question landed heavier than it should have. Ava traced the rim of her water glass, thinking about how to answer honestly without oversharing. I'm busy. That's different than lonely. Is it? Yes. But even as she said it, she wasn't sure she believed it. I have people. My team, my parents, friends from college. I text every few months. That's normal. If you say so. What about you? Ava countered. Single dad working nights at a restaurant. That can't leave a lot of time for your own life. Who says this isn't my life? Come on. You're too smart to be here long term. The way you read people, the questions you ask. This is temporary. Ethan's expression closed off slightly. Not angry, but guarded. You don't know anything about me. You're right. I don't. That's why I'm asking. They sat in silence for a moment. The restaurant was emptying out, tables being cleared, staff starting their closing routine. Ava wondered if she'd pushed too hard, crossed some line she hadn't seen. This used to be temporary, Ethan said finally. 6 years ago, I was running a startup. Small team, good product, typical Silicon Valley dream. Then my wife got sick. Cancer. We thought she'd beat it, but... He stopped, regrouped. Lily was 3 months old when Sarah died. Suddenly, I'm a single parent with a company falling apart and no idea what I'm doing. The startup failed. I sold what was left for pennies, paid off debt, and needed something flexible enough to raise a kid alone. Ava felt something cold settle in her chest. I'm sorry. It was 6 years ago. That doesn't make it less hard. No. Ethan met her eyes. But it does make it different. I'm not stuck here waiting for something better. This is what I chose because it lets me be the parent Lily needs. She's starting first grade, doing well, has friends, feels secure. That matters more than whatever career I gave up. You don't miss it, building something? Every day? Ethan's voice was quiet but steady. But missing something doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. Ava didn't have words for that. She'd spent 3 years building Luminary Tech, fighting for every inch of progress, convinced that the company's success was the most important thing she could do with her life. But Ethan had built something else, a stable childhood for his daughter. Different kind of success. Harder to measure in metrics and funding rounds. Does Lily know? Ava asked. About her mom? She knows Sarah died when she was little. We talk about it sometimes. She asked questions. Ethan's expression softened. Mrs. Chen helps. She lost her husband young, raised 2 kids alone. She gets it. Sounds like you found a good neighbor. Best decision I ever made was moving into that building. Ethan smiled slightly. Lily thinks Mrs. Chen is her grandmother. I don't correct her. A waitress approached their table. Young, probably college student working her way through school. Hey, Ethan, we're closing up. You need anything else? We're good, Maya. Thanks. Ethan stood and Ava did the same. Walk you to your car? It's 2 blocks. So that's a yes. They left together, stepping out into the Friday night cold. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet, reflecting the restaurant lights and traffic signals in warped patterns. Ava pulled her coat tighter and started walking. Can I ask you something now? Ethan said after half a block. Fair's fair. Why education software? Specifically for kids with learning differences? Ava had answered this question 100 times. For investors, press interviews, networking events, she had a polished version that hit all the right notes about market opportunity and social impact. But something about the way Ethan asked made her want to answer honestly. My brother, she said. Daniel. He's 3 years younger than me, has pretty severe dyslexia. Growing up, I watched him struggle with reading while every teacher told my parents he just wasn't trying hard enough. Like it was a character flaw instead of his brain processing information differently. He's brilliant, ended up getting a degree in engineering, works in renewable energy now. But school was hell for him because nobody bothered to meet him where he was. So you're fixing that. Trying to. Probably failing. Ava stopped at a crosswalk, waited for the light. The tech part is easy. Building adaptive systems that respond to how individual kids learn, we can do that. But getting schools to actually use it, convincing parents it's worth paying for, proving it works at scale without losing what makes it personal, that's harder. The investor meeting this morning. They want us to grow faster, sacrifice some of the personalization to reach more users. Standard Silicon Valley playbook. Move fast, break things, Figure it out later. But that defeats the point. Exactly. Ava started walking again as the light changed. Daniel didn't need a faster version of the same broken system. He needed something fundamentally different. That's what we're building. But that takes time and money and apparently more faith than most investors have. They reached her car, parked under a broken streetlight that made the whole block darker than it should be. Ava unlocked it, but didn't get in yet. "You'll figure it out," Ethan said. "How do you know?" "Because you're the kind of person who comes back to a restaurant on a Friday night just to see if the salmon's still good. You pay attention. You care about getting it right. That usually wins eventually." Ava smiled despite the weight of the day. That's optimistic coming from someone who works at a place with terrible music. "I contain multitudes." Apparently, Ava opened her car door. "Thanks for the company, and for," she gestured vaguely, "everything else. The honesty, the conversation. Same time next week?" "Are you asking me out?" "I'm asking if you're going to come back for the salmon again. Everything else is just efficient use of my break time." Ava laughed. "Maybe. Depends on how next week goes." "Fair enough." Ethan stepped back. "Drive safe and maybe answer fewer emails this weekend." "I'll try." She got in the car and watched him walk away in her rearview mirror, hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched against the cold. A man who'd given up one life to build another, who served food and cleared tables and raised his daughter with the kind of quiet strength that didn't need recognition. Ava drove home thinking about choices, the ones you made intentionally and the ones that got made for you. The difference between temporary and permanent, between giving up and letting go. By the time she pulled into her parking garage, she'd made a decision. She'd go back next Friday. Not for the salmon, though that was good too. But because talking to Ethan felt like stepping outside her own head for a few minutes, seeing her problems from a different angle. And maybe because his daughter sounded fierce and certain in a way that reminded her of Daniel at that age, before the world had convinced him he wasn't smart enough. The weekend passed in the usual blur of work and guilt about working. Marcus sent her updates about a potential investor lead, smaller firm focused on education technology, interested in meeting. Ava drafted responses to their preliminary questions and tried not to get her hopes up. Saturday night, she had dinner with college friends she hadn't seen in months, spending 2 hours being asked about her love life and whether she was taking care of herself. Sunday was family dinner, her father's pot roast, questions about the company that she answered with practiced optimism. "You look tired," her mother said while they cleaned up. "Everyone keeps saying that." "Because it's true." Her mother handed her a plate to dry. "When's the last time you took a real break? Not working from home, actual time off?" "I don't know. 6 months ago? We went to that conference in San Francisco." "That's work, Ava." "I know." Ava set down the plate. "It's just, we're so close to making this work. If I can get the funding, scale the product right, we could actually help thousands of kids like Daniel. I can't ease up now." "I understand that. But you also can't burn yourself out before you get there." Her mother meant well. They all did. But none of them understood what it meant to build something from nothing, to be responsible for 15 people's livelihoods. To know that every decision you made could mean the difference between success and another startup obituary. Monday brought meetings, code reviews, and a demo for the potential investor Marcus had found. Tuesday was user testing with a local school, watching kids interact with their latest prototype. Wednesday, a key engineer gave notice. Better offer from Google, couldn't match the salary. Thursday, Ava sat in her office at 9 p.m. wondering how everything could be going right and wrong simultaneously. Friday morning, Marcus stuck his head in her office. "The Education Innovation Fund wants a second meeting, next week." Ava looked up from her screen. "Seriously?" "Seriously. They're interested in the personalization angle. Think it's defensible." "That's good. That's..." Ava felt something unclench in her chest. "That's really good." "Yeah, so maybe don't have a breakdown this weekend." Marcus smiled. "Take Saturday off. Sunday too. Come back Monday ready to sell them on why we're worth the risk." "I can do that." "Prove it. Get out of here by 7. It's only noon." "I know. That's why I'm giving you the whole afternoon." Marcus pointed at her laptop. "Close it. Go do something normal people do." Ava wanted to argue, but she was too tired and the good news was too fresh. "Fine, but I'm taking work home." "I expected nothing less." Marcus left, and Ava spent the next hour wrapping up what couldn't wait. By 2, she was in her car, trying to remember what normal people did on Friday afternoons. Gym membership she hadn't used in months, library books she'd meant to return, apartment that needed cleaning, or she could get dinner early at a place with good salmon and terrible music, make it 4 weeks in a row, turn coincidence into pattern. The restaurant was quiet when she arrived at 6, early for the dinner rush, late for lunch. Ethan was there, taking an order from an older couple by the window. He glanced up when she walked in, did a double take, then smiled in a way that made something warm settle in Ava's chest. "You're early," he said, walking over after finishing with the couple. "Had a good day. Decided to celebrate." "Yeah? What happened?" "Second meeting with an investor. Not guaranteed, but better odds than we've had in month." "That's great." Ethan grabbed a menu from the host stand. "Same table by the window?" "Sure." He led her over, set down the menu. "Still getting the salmon, or are you feeling adventurous?" "What do you recommend?" "Honestly, the salmon. Everything else here is hit or miss, but that's consistently good." "Then salmon it is. And the Pinot." "Creatures of habit," Ethan said, but he was smiling when he said it. "I'll put that in. My shift ends at 8 if you're sticking around." "I might be." "Good." He left, and Ava pulled out her phone to find 3 texts from Marcus insisting she not think about work. She sent back a thumbs up and put the phone face down. The couple by the window were holding hands across the table, not talking, just being together in that way that long relationships made look easy. Ava wondered if she'd ever have that. The comfort of silence, the certainty of someone who stayed. Her food arrived. She ate. She answered 2 emails she couldn't ignore. 7 o'clock came and went. The restaurant filled up with the Friday crowd. Ethan moved between tables with that same efficiency, somehow always aware of what people needed before they asked. A refill here, an extra napkin there, questions answered before they were fully formed. 8:15, he appeared in street clothes, sliding into the seat across from her. "Sorry, got held up with a difficult table. Guy wanted to send back his steak 3 times. Let me guess. Kept saying it wasn't cooked right, but really, he just didn't know what he ordered?" "Exactly that. 3rd time I brought the chef out to explain the difference between medium rare and medium. Did not improve the tip." Ethan took a drink from the water glass he'd brought. "But hey, you waited." "Had nowhere else to be." "Liar, you've always got somewhere else to be." Ava smiled. "Okay, fair, but I wanted to be here." "Because of the salmon. Because of the company." Something shifted in Ethan's expression, recognition maybe, or acknowledgement of what they were actually doing here. 4 Friday nights in a row wasn't coincidence anymore. It was intentional. It meant something even if neither of them had named it yet. "My daughter wants to meet you," Ethan said suddenly. Ava blinked. "What?" "I told her about you. The woman who comes in for salmon on Fridays and talks about helping kids learn better. She's been asking questions all week." Ethan looked uncertain, like he was crossing into territory he hadn't fully mapped. "You don't have to. I know it's weird, but she's persistent, and I'm bad at telling her no." "You told her about me?" "Some. Not everything. Just, you seemed like someone worth mentioning." Ava's heart did something complicated. "I'd like to meet her." "Yeah?" "Yeah, but maybe somewhere other than a restaurant where you're working?" "That's fair." Ethan pulled out his phone. "There's this park near my place, Pike Street Playground. Lily goes there most Saturdays around 11. We could, if you wanted." "I'll be there," Ava said before she could second-guess it. Ethan looked relieved. "Okay, good. I'll warn her you're coming so she doesn't ambush you with whale facts." "I can handle whale facts." "You say that now." They talked for another hour, about nothing important, about everything important. Ethan's concerns about Lily starting 1st grade, whether she'd make friends, how to help her grieve a mother she barely remembered. Ava's worries about the investor meeting, whether she could deliver on promises she'd made, how to balance growth with integrity. The restaurant closed around them, staff cleaning and cashing out, until finally the manager came over and politely suggested they continue their conversation elsewhere. "That's my cue," Ethan said, standing up. "Walk you out?" "Always the gentleman." "Mrs. Chen's influence. She's got opinions about manners." They left together, stepping into the Friday night cold that had become familiar. 4 weeks of this: dinner, conversation, the walk to Ava's car. A pattern that felt like the beginning of something she hadn't been looking for, but maybe needed anyway. "See you tomorrow?" Ethan asked when they reached her car. 11 at Pike Street Playground. I'll be the nervous one. Lily's 6. She'll do most of the talking. You just have to nod and look impressed. Ethan's smile faded slightly. Thanks for saying yes. It means something to her. Means something to me too. Ava unlocked her car but didn't get in yet. Ethan? Yeah? I'm glad I came back that first Friday. Glad you suggested it. Me too. She drove home with that warmth still settled in her chest, thinking about tomorrow and the fierce 6-year-old who wrote letters to aquariums about tank sizes. Thinking about Ethan and the life he'd built from loss, the way he moved through the world with quiet certainty. Thinking about herself and the company she'd built, the pressure she carried, the way talking to him made some of that weight feel less crushing. Her phone buzzed at a red light. Marcus with questions about Monday's presentation. Ava typed back answers with one hand, already planning what she'd wear tomorrow, what she'd say to a kid who had strong opinions about marine life. Saturday felt different somehow, charged with possibility or nerves or both. Ava changed clothes 3 times before settling on jeans and a sweater that didn't scream, "I'm trying too hard." She showed up at Pike Street Playground at 10:58, scanning the space for Ethan and finding him on a bench near the swings. Next to him was a small girl with dark hair and 2 braids, wearing a purple jacket covered in patches. Lily saw her first, tugging on Ethan's sleeve and pointing. Ethan looked up, waved, stood. Ava walked over, heart beating harder than the situation warranted. "You must be Ava," Lily said before Ava could introduce herself. "Dad says you make stuff to help kids learn, like apps?" "That's right." "Cool. I'm Lily. I'm 6 3/4. Do you know about ocean conservation?" "Some," Ava said, sitting down on the bench next to Ethan. "But I'm guessing you know more." "Way more." Lily launched into an explanation of marine ecosystems that was equal parts accurate and enthusiastic. Ethan watched his daughter talk, pride and affection clear on his face. Ava listened, asked questions, learned more about coral bleaching than she'd ever expected to know. This was his life. This fierce, brilliant kid who saw the world clearly and wanted to fix it. This was what Ethan had chosen over everything else. And sitting here in the morning cold, watching Lily explain why dolphins were objectively better than whales, Ava understood why. "Can I show Ava the swings?" Lily asked Ethan. "If she wants to." Lily looked at Ava with expectant eyes. "Do you want to?" "Absolutely," Ava said, and meant it. They spent the next hour at the playground. Swings, slides, the climbing structure that Lily navigated with confident ease. Ethan stayed on the bench, watching but giving them space. Other parents and kids filled the park, the normal chaos of Saturday morning in Seattle. Ava pushed Lily on the swings and listened to theories about climate change and plans for saving the ocean. By noon, Lily was hungry, and Ethan suggested lunch at a place nearby. They walked together, Lily between them, holding both their hands, talking nonstop about a book she was reading. Ava caught Ethan's eye over his daughter's head and he smiled, a real one that reached his eyes and made him look younger. Lunch was easy. Lily asked Ava questions about her work, her apartment, whether she liked dogs or cats better. Ethan interjected occasionally to remind his daughter that some questions were too personal, but Ava didn't mind. There was something refreshing about Lily's directness, the way she asked what she wanted to know without pretense. "Are you and Dad dating?" Lily asked suddenly, mid-French fry. Ethan choked on his water. "Lily, what? I'm just asking." Ava met Ethan's panicked expression and decided to be honest. "We're friends. We have dinner together on Fridays." "That sounds like dating." "It sounds like friendship," Ava said carefully. "Mrs. Chen says when grown-ups have dinner every week, they're probably dating even if they say they're not." "Mrs. Chen has opinions about everything," Ethan muttered. "She's usually right, though," Lily pointed out. Ava couldn't argue with that. Neither could Ethan, apparently, because he just shook his head and changed the subject to Lily's upcoming science project. But the question hung there between them, unaddressed and maybe more accurate than either wanted to admit. After lunch, Ethan suggested they head back. Lily had homework, he had errands. They walked to the parking lot together, Lily running ahead to examine something on the ground. Sorry about that, Ethan said quietly. The dating question, she's been watching too many rom-coms with Mrs. Chen. It's okay, she's observant. Too observant. Ethan watched his daughter crouch down to look at a beetle. But she liked you. Asked me this morning if you were nice. I said you were. What else did you say? That you were smart and helped people and had good taste in salmon. Ethan's expression turned more serious. That you were someone I wanted her to meet. Ava felt that warmth in her chest again, stronger now. I'm glad you did. She's amazing, Ethan. Fierce and certain and exactly what the world needs more of. She gets that from her mom. Sarah was like that, saw what was wrong and fixed it. Didn't wait for permission. Ethan's voice was quiet but steady. Sometimes I see her in Lily and it hurts. But mostly it makes me grateful. That part of Sarah is still here, still changing things. You're doing a good job with her. I'm trying. Some days better than others. Lily came running back, beetle carefully cupped in her hands. Dad, can we keep him just for today? What do you think he'd prefer, coming home with us or staying where he belongs? Lily considered this seriously. Staying where he belongs, but I wanted to ask. Fair enough. Say goodbye. Lily crouched back down, released the beetle, watched it crawl away under a bush. Then she stood up and looked at Ava. Are you coming to dinner next Friday? That's up to your dad. Dad says yes, Lily announced confidently. Ethan smiled, caught. Yeah, I say yes. Then I'll be there, Ava said, and Lily beamed. They said goodbye in the parking lot, Lily with a hug that surprised Ava, Ethan with a look that said more than words. Ava drove home thinking about the morning, the fierce 6-year-old with opinions about everything, the way Ethan looked at his daughter like she hung the moon. She'd come to Seattle 6 years ago to build a company, to do something that mattered. But sitting in that playground, listening to Lily explain ocean conservation, watching Ethan parent with patience and humor, Ava realized mattering took different forms. The company was important, but so was this: connection, honesty, the choice to stay when you could easily leave. Her phone rang as she pulled into her garage. Marissa, probably calling to apologize again for Craig or ask about her weekend. Ava let it go to voicemail. Whatever it was could wait until Monday. Right now, she had an investor presentation to prepare for, a company to save, a future to build. But she also had Friday dinners to look forward to, conversations that made her think differently, a little girl who asked hard questions, and a quiet man who'd given up one kind of success to achieve another. Maybe her mother was right. Maybe work couldn't be everything. Maybe there was room for both, the company she was building and the life she was starting to live outside of it. The investor meeting Tuesday went better than anyone expected. The Education Innovation Fund sent 3 partners instead of the usual 2, which Marcus said was either very good or very bad. Turned out to be good. They asked hard questions about scalability, about how Luminary Tech could maintain personalization while growing user base exponentially, about competition from bigger players with deeper pockets. Ava answered each one, pulling data from memory, citing user testing results, explaining their technology and language that balance technical precision with accessibility. The adaptive learning engine adjusts in real time, she said, pulling up a demo on the conference room screen. It's not just tracking right and wrong answers. It's analyzing hesitation patterns, scroll behavior, how long a student looks at specific elements. We're building a profile of how each kid's brain actually processes information, then meeting them there. And you can do this at scale? The lead partner asked. Thompson, his name was. Mid-50s, former educator turned investor. We're doing it now with 1,500 students across 12 schools. Our infrastructure can handle 10 times that without significant additional investment. Beyond that, yes, we'll need to scale our backend, but the core technology is sound. Marcus jumped in with the technical specifics, the server architecture, and database optimization that would support growth. Ava watched the partners' faces, trying to read whether they were convinced or just being polite. Thompson kept nodding, taking notes. The other 2 asked follow-up questions that suggested genuine interest rather than due diligence box-checking. 2 hours in, Thompson leaned back in his chair. I taught high school math for 15 years before getting into this. Every year I had kids who were brilliant but couldn't pass standardized tests. System failed them completely. He looked at Ava. What you're building could have helped those kids. That matters. That's why we're doing it, Ava said. I know. That's why we're interested. Thompson closed his laptop. We'll need to run your financials, check your references, do the usual deep dive. But I'm going to recommend we move forward. Series B at your requested valuation, 18-month runway with performance milestones. Ava felt something release in her chest that she didn't realize she'd been holding. Thank you. We won't disappoint you. Don't thank me yet. We've still got work to do. But Thompson smiled when he said it. You'll hear from us by end of week. After they left, Marcus grabbed Ava's shoulders. We did it. We actually did it. They haven't signed anything yet. Well, Thompson doesn't say he's recommending something unless he means it. I've done my research on him. Marcus was practically vibrating with relief. This is happening, Ava. We're going to make it. Maybe. But Ava was smiling too, letting herself feel the possibility. Let's not celebrate until the money's in the bank. Fine, but I'm at least buying lunch, somewhere better than the food trucks we've been living on. They went to a place in Belltown that Marcus had been wanting to try, ordered food that cost more than they should be spending before funding was secured, and talked about what came next. Which schools to approach first, how to structure the rollout, whether to hire more engineers or focus on customer support. Future planning that felt real for the first time in months. Ava's phone buzzed during dessert. Text from an unknown number. This is Mrs. Chen, Ethan's neighbor. He gave me your number. Lily is sick, very high fever. Ethan had to leave work early, but restaurant won't let him miss Friday shift. Can you help? She stared at the message, processing, then typed back. Of course. What does he need? The response came fast. Someone to sit with Lily Friday evening while he works. I have my grandson's birthday dinner, cannot miss. Ethan says only if you're able, no pressure. I'll be there. What time? 5 o'clock. I'll send you the address. Thank you. Ava looked up to find Marcus watching her. Everything okay? Ethan's daughter is sick. He needs someone to watch her Friday night. Ethan the waiter? From your Friday dinners? Yeah. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You two are getting serious if he's asking you to babysit. He didn't ask, his neighbor did. And we're not serious, Ava stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence. What were they? Friends felt insufficient, dating felt presumptuous, something in between that she hadn't found words for yet. Ava, you've been having dinner with this guy every Friday for over a month. You met his kid, now you're babysitting. That's serious. It's helping someone who needs help. It's also clearly something more than salmon and conversation. Marcus softened. I'm not saying that's bad. Actually seems good. You've been different lately. Less stressed, more human. If this guy's doing that, I'm all for it. He's not doing anything. We just talk. Right. And that's why you're rearranging your Friday to watch his sick kid. Ava didn't have a good answer for that. Marcus was right, of course. This was more than friendship, more than casual dinners. But naming it felt dangerous, like acknowledging it would force decisions she wasn't ready to make. The address Mrs. Chen sent was in Greenwood, a neighborhood north of downtown that Ava rarely visited. Older buildings, tree-lined streets, the kind of area where people actually knew their neighbors. She found the apartment complex at 4:55 Friday afternoon. 3 stories, brick, probably built in the 70s. Mrs. Chen met her at the entrance. You must be Ava. I'm Susan. She was small and sharp-eyed, maybe 70, with the air of someone who'd seen everything and wasn't impressed by most of it. Lily's upstairs. Fever's down from yesterday, but she's still not well. Ethan left instructions, medicine schedule, emergency numbers. He feels terrible about this. It's fine. I'm happy to help. Mrs. Chen studied her for a moment. Ethan said you were kind. He doesn't say that about many people. They went up to the second floor. Apartment 2B. The door was unlocked. Inside was small but comfortable. Worn furniture that looked actually used, bookshelves overflowing, Lily's artwork taped to the fridge. Lived in and real in a way Ava's sterile apartment wasn't. Lily was on the couch, wrapped in blankets, watching something on an iPad. She looked up when they entered, face flushed with fever, but eyes alert. Ava came, she said, like this confirmed something she'd predicted. I told you she would. Mrs. Chen handed Ava a piece of paper covered in Ethan's handwriting. Medications, dosages, times. Phone numbers for the restaurant, for Mrs. Chen, for the pediatrician. Everything's written down. Ethan's shift ends at 10, but he'll try to get away earlier if he can. We'll be fine, Ava said, hoping that was true. Mrs. Chen gave Lily a kiss on the forehead, whispered something in her ear that made her smile, and left. Suddenly, it was just Ava and a sick 6-year-old in an apartment that smelled like soup and children's medicine. What are you watching? Ava asked, sitting down on the coffee table across from Lily. Documentary about sea turtles. Did you know they can live more than 100 years? I didn't. Most people don't. That's why they're endangered. People don't pay attention. Lily adjusted her blankets. Dad said you'd probably come, but maybe you'd be too busy. I said you'd come. Why were you so sure? Because you came to the playground when you didn't have to. People who show up once usually show up again. The observation was too wise for 6 years old. Or maybe Lily had just learned early what reliability looked like, what absence meant. Growing up without a mother probably taught you to notice who stayed. How are you feeling? Ava asked. Bad, but better than yesterday. Yesterday, I threw up 4 times. Lily said this matter-of-factly, like reporting weather. Today, just twice. That is better. Dad says I have a stomach bug. Mrs. Chen says it's going around. Jimmy from school had it last week and now everyone's getting it. Well, hopefully you'll feel better soon. They settled into an easy rhythm. Lily watched her documentary, providing commentary on sea turtle conservation that was equal parts informative and passionate. Ava learned more about ocean plastics and nesting habits than she'd ever expected. At 6, she gave Lily her medicine, cherry-flavored liquid that Lily made a face at but swallowed without complaint. At 6:30, she heated up the soup Mrs. Chen had left, helped Lily eat half a bowl before her stomach protested. I hate being sick, Lily said, pushing the bowl away. It's boring and everything hurts. I know, but you're doing great. Dad always says that, even when I'm not. Lily looked at Ava with those 2 old eyes. You like him, right? My dad? Ava chose her words carefully. I do. He's a good person. He likes you too. I can tell because he smiles different when he talks about you, like he's happy but also nervous. Nervous about what? Lily shrugged. Grown-up stuff, probably. He gets nervous about things sometimes, whether I'm okay, whether we have enough money, whether I miss having a mom. She said this last part quietly, testing whether Ava could handle it. Do you? Ava asked. Miss having a mom? I don't know. How can you miss something you never really had? Lily pulled the blanket tighter. Mrs. Chen says my mom loved me a lot. Dad says she would have been proud of me, but I don't remember her. Is that bad? No, you were really young. Sometimes I feel like I should remember, like it's wrong that I don't. Lily's voice got smaller. Dad never says that, but I think he wishes I remembered her. Ava felt something crack open in her chest. This kid carrying guilt about forgetting a mother who died before memory could form. Can I tell you something? Lily nodded. Your dad doesn't wish you remembered because that would mean you'd also remember losing her. He's glad you don't have that pain, but he makes sure you know about her so she's still part of your life, even if you don't have the memories. How do you know that? Because I've watched how he talks about your mom. He's not sad you don't remember. He's grateful you still know her through the stories. Lily considered this. That makes sense, that Dad's pretty smart about stuff like that. He is. They went back to the documentary. Ava answered work emails one-handed while Lily dozed on and off. Around 8, Lily asked if they could read instead of watch more TV. Her head hurt too much for screens. Ava found a book on the shelf, something about a girl who could talk to animals, and read aloud while Lily listened with closed eyes. You're good at this, Lily murmured during a chapter break. At reading? At being here. Some people get weird around sick kids. You're just normal. Well, you're pretty easy to be around, sick or not. Lily smiled, eyes still closed. Dad said you were nice. He was right. By 9, Lily was properly asleep, fever seeming to break finally. Ava covered her with an extra blanket and looked around the apartment. Dishes in the sink from breakfast. Lily's homework spread on the kitchen table. Math problems about fractions, careful numbers in a child's handwriting. Ethan's laptop on the counter, closed. A photo on the bookshelf of a woman holding a baby. Sarah, presumably. Beautiful and young and gone. Ava washed the dishes because it was something to do, then cleaned up the kitchen, put away Lily's homework. Normal things that felt intimate in someone else's space. She was wiping down the counter when her phone buzzed. Ethan. How is she? Sleeping. Fever broke about an hour ago. She ate some soup, kept her medicine down. Thank you, I mean it. I didn't know who else to call. I'm glad you did. Or that Mrs. Chen did. I'll be home by 10:30. Manager finally agreed to let me leave. Take your time. We're fine. There was a pause on the line. Then Ethan's voice, quieter. You didn't have to do this. I know. But you did anyway. Yeah. Another pause. I'll see you soon. Ava sat on the couch near Lily, watching her sleep, thinking about what it meant to show up for someone. Not the grand gestures or dramatic declarations, just the quiet choice to be there when needed. She'd built a company on the belief that showing up mattered, that meeting kids where they were instead of demanding they adapt made all the difference. But she'd been so focused on that mission, she'd forgotten how to show up for actual people in her actual life. Until Ethan. Until Friday dinners became something she looked forward to more than board meetings. Until a fierce 6-year-old asked questions that made her think differently about success and purpose and what mattered. The key turned in the lock at 10:20. Ethan came in quietly, saw Lily asleep on the couch, saw Ava sitting nearby. His whole body seemed to release tension. She okay? He whispered. Fever's gone. She's been asleep about an hour. Ethan crouched down next to his daughter, put a hand on her forehead, checked her breathing. Satisfied, he straightened up and looked at Ava. I owe you. You don't. I do. I don't usually ask people for help like this. I noticed. Mrs. Chen had to text me because you wouldn't. I didn't want to pressure you. We've only known each other a few weeks. Asking you to babysit felt like too much. Ava stood up. Ethan, I wanted to be here. That's why I came. Something passed between them then. Acknowledgement of what they'd been dancing around for weeks. This wasn't just friendship. Wasn't just Friday dinners and conversations about work and parenting. This was something else. Something that made Ava drive across town to watch a sick kid she barely knew because the kid's father needed help. She talked about you all week, Ethan said quietly. After the playground. Wanted to know when you were coming back. Whether you liked her. If you thought dolphins were really better than whales. What'd you tell her? That you definitely liked her. That you were busy with important work but made time anyway. The dolphins are objectively better, but whales have their merits. Ava smiled. Diplomatic. I try. Ethan moved to the kitchen, saw the clean dishes, the organized homework. You didn't have to do all this. I was here anyway. Might as well be useful. You're always useful. That's not the same as showing up in someone's home and taking care of their sick kid and doing their dishes. Ethan turned to face her. Why'd you really come? Because you needed help. That's not enough of a reason, not for someone as busy as you. Ava thought about lying, deflecting. But Lily's question from earlier echoed in her head. You like him, right? And the truth was yes, she did. More than made sense for a few Friday dinners and one afternoon at a playground. Because I wanted to, she said finally. Because when Mrs. Chen texted, my first thought wasn't about what I'd have to cancel or how it would affect my schedule. It was just, yes, of course. That surprised me. Why? Because I don't usually work like that. Everything's calculated, cost versus benefit, time management, whether something moves me closer to my goals, but this was just, she struggled for the right words. Simple. You needed help. I could give it. Nothing else mattered. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I'm going to ask you something and I need you to answer honestly. Okay? What are we doing here? These Friday dinners, you meeting Lily, this... He gestured at the apartment, at the evening they'd just had. I need to know what this is because I've got a kid who's already attached to you and I can't let that go further if this is just casual friendship. Ava's heart was beating too hard. What do you want it to be? I asked first. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. I learned that when my wife died at 28 and left me with a 3-month-old. Ethan's voice was steady but intense. So I'm asking, what do you want from this? Ava looked at him, at this man who'd given up everything to raise his daughter alone, who served food with quiet dignity, who'd read her situation that first night and decided to intervene, who'd become someone she thought about when she should be thinking about quarterly projections and user testing results. More than friendship, she said. I don't know what exactly, but more than what we're calling it now. Even though I'm a waiter with a kid and you're a CEO building an empire? Don't do that. Don't reduce yourself to a job title. That's all most people see. I'm not most people. Ava took a step closer. I see someone who's brilliant enough to read a situation in seconds, who's raising an incredible kid alone, who gave up a career to do something harder and more important. The restaurant is what you do for money. It's not who you are. And who am I? I'm still figuring that out. But I want to. Ethan studied her face like he was looking for doubt, for the hesitation that would prove this was a mistake. Ava held his gaze, letting him look, hoping he'd see certainty instead. This could get complicated, he said finally. I've got Lily to think about. Her routine, her stability. I can't bring someone into her life and then have them leave. I wouldn't do that to her. You don't know that. Things happen. People change their minds. You're right. I don't know for certain. But I can tell you that when Mrs. Chen texted, I didn't hesitate. When I was here tonight with Lily, it didn't feel like obligation. It felt like exactly where I should be. Ava paused. I can't promise perfect, but I can promise honest. Honest I can work with. Ethan's expression softened slightly. Fair warning, dating a single parent is nothing like normal dating. There's no spontaneity. Everything's scheduled around a 6-year-old's needs. Friday nights are basically it for free time. I'm okay with that. And Lily will have opinions, lots of them, about everything. I noticed. And I'm broke compared to your world. Can't take you to fancy restaurants or buy expensive gifts. This apartment is what I can afford. I drive a 12-year-old Honda. That's reality. I don't care about any of that. You say that now. Ethan, Ava closed the distance between them. I spent 2 hours tonight watching sea turtle documentaries with your daughter, and it was the best part of my week. That should tell you something. He looked at her for a long moment, then, quietly, it tells me you're either genuinely interested or a very good liar. I'm a terrible liar. Ask anyone who's tried to negotiate with me. Noted. Ethan glanced at Lily, still sleeping. When he looked back at Ava, something had shifted in his expression. So we're doing this? Officially? If you want to. I asked you first, remember? Then yes, we're doing this. The smile that crossed Ethan's face was worth every uncertainty, every complication that came with this choice. Okay, good. That's good. Very articulate. I'm tired, and my kid's been sick, and you just agreed to date a broke single dad who works nights at a restaurant with terrible music. Give me a break on the articulation. Ava laughed, and Lily stirred on the couch, mumbling something about sea turtles before settling back into sleep. They both froze, waiting to see if she'd wake up. She didn't. I should go, Ava whispered. Let you get her to bed properly. Yeah, but Ethan didn't move to show her out. Same time next Friday? Assuming Lily's better. She will be. Kid bounces back from everything. Ethan walked her to the door. Thank you, really. This meant a lot. To me, too. They stood in the doorway, that awkward space between leaving and staying. Ethan reached out, tucked a piece of hair behind her ear, a gesture so casual and intimate it made Ava's breath catch. Drive safe, he said. I will. She left before the moment could get more complicated, walking down the stairs to her car with her heart still beating too fast. In the driver's seat, she sat for a minute, processing what had just happened. She'd agreed to date someone, officially, for the first time in 3 years. Someone with a kid and a complicated past and a life that looked nothing like the polished professional world she usually inhabited. Her phone buzzed, text from Marcus. Thompson called, "They're moving forward with Series B, paperwork next week. We did it." The news should have felt monumental, should have been the highlight of her day, her week, her year. And it was securing funding meant Luminary Tech would survive, would grow, would actually help the thousands of kids they dreamed about reaching. But sitting in her car outside Ethan's apartment, Ava realized the best part of today hadn't been Thompson's call. It had been sitting on a couch, watching Lily sleep, talking with Ethan about what they were becoming, making a choice to show up for someone beyond her spreadsheets and strategies. She typed back to Marcus, "That's amazing. Celebrate Monday?" Then she texted Mrs. Chen, "Lily's fever broke. She's asleep. Thank you for trusting me with her." The response came immediately. "I knew you would be good for them. Ethan needs someone who sees him clearly. You do." Ava wasn't sure about that, but she wanted to be. Wanted to understand this man who'd rebuilt his life from tragedy, who measured success in his daughter's happiness rather than titles or bank accounts, who'd taken one look at her across a restaurant table and decided she was worth warning, worth talking to, worth opening his carefully guarded life to. The drive home felt different, charged with possibility and fear in equal measure. She'd just complicated her life spectacularly. Dating someone was hard enough without adding a child, without the logistical nightmare of his schedule and hers, without the pressure of Lily's attachment and the responsibility that came with it. But she'd also just chosen something real over something easy, had admitted she wanted more than Friday dinners and safe conversations, had looked at Ethan's life, messy and complicated and nothing like her own, and decided it was worth figuring out. Her mother called as Ava pulled into her garage. "Hi, sweetheart. Just checking in. How was your week?" "Good. Really good, actually." Ava turned off the engine. "We got the Series B funding. Official confirmation today." "Oh, Ava, that's wonderful. Your father will be so proud." "Thanks. We're pretty relieved. I know you've been worried. Now you can breathe a little." "Yeah." Ava got out of the car, headed to the elevator. "Also, I wanted to tell you something else. I'm seeing someone, kind of officially, as of tonight." Her mother went quiet for a second. "That's... wow. Who is he?" "His name's Ethan. He's got a 6-year-old daughter. It's still new, but it feels good. Different than I expected." "Different how?" "Just real. No games, no pretense. He's direct and honest, and he's been through things that make my problems feel small." "That sounds promising." Her mother's voice warmed. "When do we get to meet him?" "Let me figure out what we're doing first. But soon. Maybe." They talked for a few more minutes about logistics and Sunday dinner plans. When Ava hung up, she was standing in her apartment looking at the sparse furniture and wondering what Ethan would think of it. Probably that it looked like a hotel room or a showpiece, not somewhere a person actually lived. He'd be right. She spent Saturday cleaning her apartment properly for the first time in months, buying groceries that weren't just coffee and yogurt, trying to make the space feel lived in. Sunday dinner with her parents, she told them more about Ethan, carefully editing the details but letting them see she was serious about this. Her father asked questions about his background, what he did, whether he was treating her well. Her mother just smiled and said it was about time Ava let someone in. Monday, the paperwork for Series B started. Lawyers and contracts and negotiations over terms. Marcus was giddy with relief, already planning the hiring pipeline and product roadmap. Ava moved through the meetings with half her attention, the other half thinking about Friday, about Ethan's shift ending, and whether Lily would be recovered enough to join them for dinner. Tuesday. Lily texted her. Ethan had given her Ava's number for emergencies only, but Lily's definition of emergency was flexible. "I'm not sick anymore. Did you know octopuses can regrow their arms?" Ava responded between meetings. "I didn't. That's pretty amazing. Super amazing. Dad says you're coming to dinner Friday. Can we go somewhere with good dessert?" "I'll make sure of it." Wednesday brought the first real complication. The Series B terms required Ava to commit to staying as CEO for minimum 3 years, which was fine, but also included aggressive growth targets that would mean longer hours, more travel, less flexibility. She sat in her office staring at the contract, thinking about Friday dinners and 6-year-olds who wanted to save the ocean. Marcus found her there at 7. "What's wrong? You look stressed." "Just thinking about what these growth targets actually mean. They mean we get to build what we've been dreaming about. Help thousands of kids instead of hundreds." "Yeah, but it also means I'll be working even more than I am now. Travel to conferences, meet investors, oversee expansion. The next 3 years are going to be brutal. That's what you signed up for, though. That's the job. I know. I'm not backing out. Just thinking about how it affects other things. Marcus studied her. This is about Ethan. Partially. Ava, you can have both, a career and a relationship. People do it all the time. Not people building companies from scratch. Not people dating single parents with rigid schedules. The math doesn't work. So make it work. You're good at solving impossible problems. Apply that here. It's different when it's people instead of product. Not that different. You figure out what matters most, optimize for that, iterate when things break. Same principles. Marcus sat down across from her. Look, I don't know this guy, but I know you've been different since you met him, less like you're carrying the world alone. If he's doing that, he's worth figuring out the logistics. Ava knew Marcus was right. But knowing and doing were different things. She'd spent 3 years making luminary tech her whole life, measuring success in metrics and milestones. Now she had to figure out how to make room for something that didn't fit on a spreadsheet, that required presence instead of efficiency, that would demand she actually leave the office at reasonable hours and mean it. Thursday, she called Ethan during his afternoon break. Can we talk about Friday? Sure. What's up? I want to be honest about something. These next few months are going to be intense. We got the funding, which is great, but it comes with expectations. Growth targets, travel requirements, basically even less free time than I have now. Ethan was quiet for a moment. You're telling me this because I don't want you to think I'm flaking if I have to cancel or reschedule. This matters to me. You and Lily matter, but work's about to get crazy. Okay, so we adapt. It's not that simple. Sure it is. Friday dinners when you can make them. Other times when you can't. I'm not expecting perfect, Ava, just honest. But what about Lily? She's already attached. Lily understands when people are busy. She gets that adults have jobs and responsibilities. As long as you're straight with her, she'll handle it. And if I can't be as available as you need, then we'll deal with that when it happens. But assuming we'll fail before we start is pointless. Ethan's voice softened. Look, I get it. You're scared of letting people down, but you can't control everything. Sometimes you just have to trust that people will tell you what they need instead of trying to predict it. Ava sat with that for a moment. He was right again. She was trying to solve a problem that didn't exist yet, optimize for failure instead of possibility. Okay, Friday still works? Friday works. Lily's been planning the dessert strategy all week. Fair warning, she has strong opinions about cake versus pie. Noted. Ava smiled despite her anxiety. I'll see you then. Looking forward to it. Friday arrived with rain naturally, and a morning full of contract negotiations that made Ava want to put her head through a wall. By 3, she was exhausted, ready to cancel and just work through the evening. But she'd promised. Not just Ethan, but Lily, who'd texted earlier with octopus facts and dessert questions. She left the office at 5, drove to the restaurant, and found Ethan waiting outside despite the rain. You're early, she said, getting out of her car. Shift ended at 4, couldn't get coverage, but manager owed me one. Ethan held up an umbrella. Come on, Lily's waiting at home. She made you something. They drove separately to his apartment, where Lily met them at the door with a drawing. Ava and Lily at the playground, surprisingly detailed for a 6-year-old's work. I made this for you, Lily said, because you came when I was sick and you didn't have to. Ava felt her throat tighten. This is beautiful, Lily. I know, I'm good at art. No false modesty, just certainty. Can we go get dessert now? I've been waiting all day. They went to a place Lily chose, half bakery, half cafe, full of families and noise. Lily ordered chocolate cake, Ethan got coffee, Ava settled on pie just to represent the opposing faction. They sat by the window watching rain make patterns on the glass while Lily explained her science project about erosion and water tables. Miss Martinez says I think too much about environmental stuff, Lily said, frosting on her nose. Like it's a bad thing, but isn't that the point? To think about things and fix them? Miss Martinez probably just means you should focus on the assignment requirements, Ethan said carefully. The assignment is boring. My idea is better. Maybe, but sometimes you have to work within the system before you can change it. Lily made a face but didn't argue. Ava watched the interaction. Ethan parenting with patience, Lily testing boundaries but ultimately trusting her father's judgment. This was their dynamic, built over 6 years of just the two of them. She was entering something established, something that worked. The responsibility of that felt heavy. After dessert, they walked through the neighborhood despite the rain. Lily jumping in puddles, Ethan and Ava following more carefully. At one point, Lily ran ahead to examine a particularly impressive puddle, leaving the adults alone. "You're quiet tonight," Ethan said, thinking. "About? Whether I can actually do this, be present enough to make it work. You're here now." "That's not the same as being here consistently." Ethan stopped walking. "Ava, look at me." She did. They went back to the apartment. Ethan got Lily into dry clothes while Ava waited in the living room. When he came back out, Lily was in pajamas demanding one more documentary before bed. "Stay?" Ethan asked Ava quietly. "I should probably go. Let you two have your routine. Or you could become part of the routine." Ava looked at him. At this man offering integration instead of accommodation, inclusion instead of keeping her separate. It would be easier to leave, maintain the boundary between his life and hers. But easier wasn't better. She'd learned that much. "Okay," she said. "I'll stay." They watched a documentary about coral reefs, Lily providing commentary that was equal parts science and passion. By 8:30, she was falling asleep on the couch. Ethan carried her to bed, came back 20 minutes later looking tired but content. "She wants you to read to her tomorrow night if you're free," he said. "Fair warning, she'll take that as a standing invitation." "I have meetings until 6, but I could come by after." "You sure? I don't want to pressure—" "Ethan, I want to. If I didn't, I'd say no." He smiled. "Okay, then yeah, come by tomorrow." Ava left around 9, driving home through rain that had softened to mist. Her apartment felt emptier than usual after the warmth of Ethan's place. The evidence of life lived fully instead of efficiently. She had emails to answer, work to do. But instead she hung Lily's drawing on her fridge, the first personal item in a space that had been purely functional for 3 years. Saturday, she went back to Ethan's apartment and read 3 chapters of the animal communication book before Lily finally fell asleep. Ethan made dinner. They talked about the Series B terms and his thoughts on returning to tech someday, maybe building something that mattered the way Luminary Tech did. "You still think about it?" Ava asked. "What you gave up?" "Every day. But I don't regret it. There's a difference." Ethan leaned back in his chair. "Sarah wanted me to be happy, to keep building things. But she also wanted Lily to have the childhood we didn't get to give her together. I chose that. Doesn't mean I don't wonder sometimes what the other path looked like." "What would you build, if you could?" "Something for kids like Lily. Educational, but not boring. Something that makes learning feel like exploration instead of obligation." He smiled. "Basically what you're doing. Maybe that's why I'm drawn to it." An idea sparked in Ava's mind, small but persistent. Something about Ethan's understanding of how kids learned, combined with Luminary Tech's platform. But she didn't say anything yet. Too early, too uncertain. Instead, she filed it away for later when the chaos of Series B settled and she could think clearly about expansion. They fell into a rhythm over the next few weeks. Friday dinners when possible, Saturdays at Ethan's with Lily, stolen weekday lunches when their schedules aligned. Ava answered emails while Lily did homework, reviewed code while Ethan cooked dinner, let herself exist in spaces that weren't about productivity or progress. Her team noticed the change. Marcus commented that she seemed less frantic, more focused. Her mother said she looked happier during Sunday dinners. Even Daniel, during their monthly call, mentioned she sounded different, good different. "Met someone," Ava admitted. "Seriously? You actually took time to date?" "He made it easy, or hard, depending on perspective." "Hard how?" "He's got a kid. Real responsibilities. Can't do the casual thing. And you're okay with that?" Ava thought about Lily's drawings on her fridge, about Ethan's hand finding hers while they watched documentaries, about feeling like part of something instead of building it alone. "Yeah, I am." The complications came anyway, of course. A crisis at work the same week Lily had her school play. Investor meetings scheduled over the weekend. Ethan had planned a trip to the aquarium. The constant tension between what Ava needed to do for the company and what she wanted to do for this family that was becoming hers. But they worked through it, sometimes messily, sometimes with frustration, but always with the honesty Ethan had demanded from the start. She missed the school play but came to watch the rehearsal the night before. She rescheduled the investor meetings and went to the aquarium, answered emails on her phone while Lily explained why the sea turtles needed better habitats. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And somehow, standing in the aquarium watching Lily's face light up while Ethan's hand found hers, Ava realized perfect had never been the point. The point was showing up. The point was trying. The point was choosing to build something that mattered outside the metrics and milestones she'd spent 3 years chasing. The real test came 3 months in, when everything fell apart at once, and the man she'd been getting to know revealed exactly who he'd been all along. The crisis started with a single email Thursday morning. Subject line, urgent, platform security breach. Ava was halfway through her coffee when Marcus burst into her office without knocking, laptop open, face pale. "We've got a problem. Major problem." She set down the cup. "How major?" "Someone accessed our student data servers last night. We're talking names, learning profiles, assessment results. 1,500 kids' information potentially compromised." The coffee turned to acid in Ava's stomach. How did this happen? We've got encryption, multiple authentication layers. They got in through a third-party integration we added last month, the one Thompson's team insisted on for the reporting dashboard. Marcus pulled up logs on his screen. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were looking for. This wasn't random. Ava was already moving, grabbing her phone. "Call our legal team, now, and get everyone in the conference room in 20 minutes. I need to know exactly what was accessed and when." The next 6 hours were a blur of crisis management, legal consultations, security audits, drafting notifications for affected families. Federal regulations required disclosure within 72 hours. They had to figure out the extent of the breach, who was responsible, and how to prevent it from happening again. All while Thompson and the Education Innovation Fund partners were breathing down their necks about reputational risk and liability exposure. By 3 p.m., Ava had been on the phone with lawyers for 2 hours straight, had fielded calls from 3 panicked school administrators, and had watched their stock of goodwill evaporate in real time. This was every founder's nightmare. Not just failing, but failing in a way that hurt the exact people you'd promised to protect. "We need to make a statement," Marcus said during a brief break. "Get ahead of this before parents find out through the grapevine." "And say what? That we let their kids' data get stolen? That all our security measures failed? That we're investigating, taking it seriously, and implementing additional protections? The standard response. The standard response is PR garbage, and parents will see through it." Ava rubbed her eyes. "We need to know who did this and why. Then we can figure out what to say." Her phone buzzed. "Ethan. Still on for dinner tonight?" Lily's been asking. Ava had completely forgotten. She typed back, "Crisis at work? Can't make it. I'm sorry." The response came fast. "Everything okay?" "Not really. I'll explain later. Tell Lily I'm sorry." "She'll understand. Let me know if you need anything." Ava stared at that last message. Such a simple offer, but one she had no idea how to accept. What she needed was for this breach to never have happened, for the last 8 hours to rewind, for the company she'd built on the principle of protecting vulnerable kids to not have failed at the most basic level. The investigation continued through Thursday night and into Friday. By then, they'd traced the breach to a phishing attack that had compromised one of their junior developers' credentials. The attacker had used those credentials to access the third-party integration, then pivoted to the student data servers. Professional, calculated, deliberate. "Why would someone target us specifically?" Marcus asked during an emergency board meeting Friday afternoon. "We're not that big. Our data isn't valuable to typical hackers." "Unless this wasn't about the data," Thompson said from the video conference screen. "Unless someone wanted to damage your reputation right as you're scaling." Ava's stomach dropped. "You think this was intentional? Someone trying to sabotage us?" "I think the timing is suspicious. You just secured Series B. You're about to expand to 50 schools. You're getting press attention. Makes you a target for competitors who don't want to see you succeed." "That's paranoid," Marcus said. "Maybe, but it's also worth investigating." Thompson leaned back in his chair. "Either way, you need to contain this. Fast. I've got partners asking whether we should pull funding over liability concerns." The meeting went another hour, everyone debating response strategies and damage control. By the time it ended, Ava felt like she'd been run over by something heavy and methodical. She drove home in a daze, her phone full of messages she hadn't answered, from her team, from worried parents, from reporters who'd somehow already gotten wind of the story, and from Ethan, checking in periodically, but not pushing. Her apartment felt cold and sterile after weeks of spending time at Ethan's place. She collapsed on the couch and finally called him back. "Hey," he said, "you sound exhausted." "We had a data breach. Student information got compromised. It's bad doesn't begin to cover it." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "The kids whose data got stolen, are they at risk?" "We don't think so. Mostly learning profiles and assessment data. Nothing financial or truly sensitive, but it's still a massive violation of trust. And you're blaming yourself." "I'm the CEO. This happened on my watch. Of course I'm blaming myself." "Was it your fault, though? Did you make the decision that led to the breach?" "I approved the third-party integration. I signed off on the vendor without reviewing their security protocols carefully enough. So yeah, it was my fault." Ethan sighed. "Ava, you can't review every line of code, every vendor contract, every security measure personally. You hired people to do that. If someone dropped the ball, that's on them too." "That's not how it works. The responsibility stops with me." "I know, but beating yourself up doesn't fix the problem. What does fix it?" Ava closed her eyes. "Figuring out who did this and why. Implementing better security. Rebuilding trust with parents and schools. Probably months of work and maybe losing some of our school contracts anyway." "Okay. So you know what needs to happen. Now, you just have to do it." "You make it sound simple." "It's not simple, but it's straightforward. One step at a time until you're through it." Ethan paused. "You want to come over? Lily's asleep, but I'm up. Could use the company if you need it." Ava wanted to say yes, wanted to drive to his apartment and let him make her feel like this wasn't the end of everything. But she had emails to answer, a security team to coordinate with, legal documents to review. "I can't. Too much work." "Right, of course." His voice was carefully neutral. "Well, offer stands if you change your mind." "Thank you, really. I need to handle this." "I know you do, but Ava, you don't have to handle it alone." After they hung up, she sat in the dark for a long time thinking about that. She'd spent 3 years building Luminary Tech essentially alone. Marcus was a partner, but the weight of decisions, the pressure of success or failure, that all lived on her shoulders. She'd accepted that as the cost of being a founder, but maybe that acceptance had been a mistake. Maybe asking for help wasn't weakness. She picked up her phone and texted Marcus, "I need your help tomorrow. Real help, not just task delegation. Can you clear your schedule?" "Already did. We're in this together." Saturday morning, they met at the office, empty and quiet on a weekend, and started mapping out everything that needed to happen. Security audit, vendor review, parent communications, press strategy, legal compliance. The list was overwhelming, but seeing it written out made it manageable. They divided responsibilities, set deadlines, called in favors from colleagues who owed them. By noon, they'd made real progress. The security firm they'd hired had preliminary findings. The breach was sophisticated but contained. No evidence of ongoing access. The attacker had gotten what they wanted and gotten out clean. "So what did they want?" Marcus asked. "If they were just after data to sell, why target educational assessment information? That's worthless on the black market. Unless Thompson's right and this was sabotage, someone trying to damage us specifically." "But who? We don't have enemies. We're an education startup, not some controversial tech giant." Ava's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Ms. Bennett, this is Detective Sarah Park with Seattle PD Cybercrimes Division. I understand you've experienced a security breach." "Yes, how did you—" "Your case was flagged because we're investigating a pattern of attacks targeting education technology companies in the region. Same methods, same timing. You're the 4th company hit in 3 months." Ava grabbed a pen. "4th? Who else?" "I can't share details of ongoing investigations, but I'd like to come by and discuss what you've learned. Comparing notes might help us figure out who's behind this." They arranged a meeting for Monday morning. After hanging up, Ava turned to Marcus. We're not the only ones. There's a pattern. That's almost worse. Means we're up against someone organized. Or it means we're not alone in fighting this. Maybe we can pool resources, figure it out together. Marcus smiled slightly. Look at you accepting help. Ethan's influence? Shut up. I'm serious. 3 months ago, you would have insisted on handling everything yourself. Now you're actually asking for help. That's growth. Ava threw a pen at him, but he wasn't wrong. Something had shifted since she'd met Ethan. Some understanding that carrying everything alone wasn't strength, it was just exhausting. That letting people help didn't diminish her, it made the weight bearable. Her phone buzzed, text from Lily. Dad says you're really busy with work problems. Do you need a drawing? Mrs. Chen says art helps when people are stressed. Despite everything, Ava smiled. She typed back, a drawing would be perfect. Thank you for thinking of me. I'll make you a good one with dolphins because they're smart and you're smart too. That's very sweet. I know. When are you coming over again? I miss you. Ava felt her throat tighten. She'd been so consumed with the crisis she'd barely thought about how her absence affected Lily. The kid had already lost one important woman in her life. Was Ava teaching her that people always left when things got hard? Soon, I promise. Things are just complicated right now with work. That's okay. Dad says important jobs are hard sometimes, but you're good at hard things. The faith in that statement, the absolute certainty that Ava would handle this, felt simultaneously comforting and terrifying. What if she couldn't? What if this breach destroyed the company, proved she wasn't capable of protecting the people who trusted her? She worked through the weekend, barely sleeping, living on coffee and takeout. Monday. The detective came by with 2 colleagues and they spent 4 hours comparing breach patterns, analyzing attack vectors, building a profile of who they were dealing with. Professional, well-funded, specifically targeting small education tech companies during growth phases. We think they're trying to create market instability, Detective Park explained. Hit enough small players hard enough, scare investors away from the sector, make room for bigger companies to move in. So this is corporate warfare, Ava said. Essentially, though proving it and prosecuting it are 2 different things. The investigation continued through the week. Ava barely left the office, fielding calls from concerned parents, reassuring school administrators, working with the security team to implement new protocols. The press picked up the story Wednesday, not front-page news, but enough to damage their reputation. Applications from new schools dropped by 40% overnight. Thursday evening, she was still at her desk when her phone rang. Ethan, for the first time in days. You've been avoiding me, he said without preamble. I've been working. You've been hiding. There's a difference. Ava closed her laptop. What do you want me to say? That I'm failing? That everything I built is falling apart? Because that's where we are. I want you to say you'll let me help, or at least let me be there while you deal with this. There's nothing you can do, Ethan. This isn't something you can fix with coffee and conversation. I know that, but you're shutting me out anyway. Because I don't have bandwidth for anything else right now. The company is on fire. I'm trying to save it. And you think doing that alone makes you stronger, or just more miserable? Ava felt anger flash hot. You don't understand. This isn't just a job. This is everything I've worked for. All those kids counting on us to protect them, and we failed. That's on me. I don't get to just clock out and pretend it's fine. I'm not asking you to pretend anything. I'm asking you to remember that you're a person, not just a CEO, that you need support the same as anyone else. I don't have time for support. I have time for fixing this. Ava, I have to go. I'll call you when things settle down. She hung up before he could respond, immediately felt guilty, but pushed it down. There'd be time for apologies later. Right now, she had a company to save. Friday morning brought worse news. 2 schools had officially withdrawn from their pilot program, citing parental concerns about data security. Thompson called to say the investment partners were reconsidering their timeline, which was venture capital speak for maybe pulling out entirely. And the detective called to say they'd hit a dead end on the investigation. Whoever was behind the attacks had covered their tracks too well. Ava sat in her office, staring at the evidence of everything unraveling. 3 years of work, thousands of hours, every ounce of her energy and focus, and it was collapsing because of one breach, one vulnerability she hadn't caught. The unfairness of it made her want to scream. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Saw the news about your breach. Tough break. Maybe you should stick to smaller ambitions. The taunt was clearly meant to provoke her, but something about the wording caught her attention. She forwarded it to Detective Park with a note. Got this today? Might be relevant? The response came within minutes. That's the first direct contact they've made. Can you trace the number? Ava handed it off to their security team, who started tracking it immediately. While they worked, she finally let herself think about what was actually happening. Someone had deliberately sabotaged her company. Not random hackers, not opportunistic criminals, but someone with an agenda. Someone who wanted Luminary Tech to fail. The security team came back an hour later. Number's a burner, but it pinged off a cell tower near downtown Seattle. We've got a rough location. Ava called Detective Park. We've got a location. What do we do with it? Send it to me. We'll check surveillance cameras in the area, see if we can identify who purchased the burner phone. It took 2 days. 2 days of Ava pacing her office, running on 4 hours of sleep total, snapping at her team and apologizing, trying to hold everything together through sheer force of will. Saturday evening, Detective Park called with an update. We've got a suspect, named Richard Vance. He's a consultant for Vertex Educational Systems. Vertex? Ava's mind raced. They're one of the biggest players in education tech. Why would they bother sabotaging us? We're tiny compared to them. You're tiny now, but your technology is better than theirs and you're growing fast. They've been trying to develop similar adaptive learning systems for years without success. We think they hired Vance to slow down competitors while they catch up. Can you prove it? We're working on it. Vance isn't talking, but we've got enough to hold him while we build a case. Digital forensics might give us more. Ava hung up feeling a strange mix of vindication and fury. Someone had deliberately tried to destroy what she'd built because they couldn't compete honestly. It was satisfying to know she'd been right about the sabotage, infuriating to know people operated that way. She called Marcus. It was Vertex. They hired someone to attack us. Those bastards. What happens now? Investigation continues, but we know what we're dealing with. And we can tell schools the truth. This wasn't our failure. This was corporate sabotage. Will they believe us? Some will, some won't, but at least we're not going down without a fight. Sunday morning, Ava drafted a statement for their partner schools explaining what they'd learned, how they'd collaborated with law enforcement, what additional security measures they'd implemented. It was honest without being defensive, transparent about what had happened while making clear they'd been deliberately targeted. The response was better than expected. Most schools appreciated the transparency. Several administrators said they'd suspected something organized given how sophisticated the breach was. A few withdrew anyway, but more stayed than Ava had feared. Thompson called Monday to say the investment was back on. The partners were impressed with how she'd handled the crisis. By Tuesday, 10 days after the breach, things were stabilizing. Not fixed, not back to normal, but stable enough that Ava could breathe without feeling like her chest was in a vice. She left the office at 7, drove to Ethan's apartment without calling ahead, and knocked on his door. He answered, looking surprised and wary. Hey, can we talk? Lily's doing homework. That's fine. I'll wait. Ethan let her in. Lily looked up from the kitchen table, face lighting up. Ava, you're back. Did you solve your work problems? Mostly. Still some things to figure out, but it's better. Good. Want to see my drawing? I made you one with dolphins like I promised. I'd love to see it. Lily showed her an elaborate drawing of dolphins swimming through an ocean filled with mathematical equations and book symbols. Because you help kids learn, and dolphins are really smart. It's a metaphor. It's perfect, Ava said honestly. Thank you. After Lily went back to her homework, Ethan gestured to the couch. They sat down, careful distance between them. I'm sorry, Ava said before he could speak, for shutting you out, for being an ass on the phone, for disappearing when things got hard. I know you were dealing with a lot. That's not an excuse. You were right. I was hiding. I didn't know how to let you help because I'm not good at needing people. Ava looked at him. But I'm trying to learn. That's what these last months with you have been, Learning that I don't have to carry everything alone. Ethan was quiet for a moment. What happened with the breach? You said it was mostly solved. Ava explained about the investigation, about Vertex and Richard Vance, about how it was corporate sabotage, not her company's failure. Ethan listened without interrupting, his expression shifting from concern to anger to something that looked like relief. So you weren't wrong, he said when she finished. Your security was solid. Someone just wanted to hurt you badly enough to break through anyway. Basically, doesn't make the damage any less real, but at least I know we didn't fail the kids through carelessness. That matters to you, more than the company even. Of course it does. The company's just a vehicle for actually helping people. If we're not doing that, what's the point? Ethan smiled slightly. That's why I knew you'd figure it out. You care too much to give up. I almost did, though. Wednesday night, I sat in my office seriously considering just shutting everything down. Telling Thompson to keep his money, releasing our employees to find better jobs. It felt impossible. But you didn't. No. Because Marcus reminded me we were in it together. Because Detective Park showed me we weren't alone. Because Lily texted me about dolphins and believing I could handle hard things. Ava's voice got quieter. Because even though I was being terrible to you, you kept checking in, kept offering support even when I was too stubborn to accept it. That's what people do when they care about someone, Ethan said. They stay even when it's hard. I'm not good at that. Staying. I'm good at building things alone, at being self-sufficient, at not needing anyone. But that's not actually strength, is it? It's just fear. Fear of what? Of letting people in and having them leave. Of trusting someone and being wrong. Of needing someone and them not being there. Ava met his eyes. My last relationship ended because I chose work over him one too many times. He said I was married to my career and he wasn't interested in being the side piece. He wasn't wrong. Is that what you think this is? You choosing work over me? Isn't it? I disappeared for 10 days, barely answered your calls. Used the crisis as an excuse to avoid dealing with us. Ethan shook his head. You had an actual crisis. Your company was under attack. I'm not going to punish you for prioritizing that. But I shut you out anyway, even when you offered help. Yeah, you did, and that hurt. But I also understand why. Ethan shifted closer. Here's the thing, though. I'm not him. Your ex who couldn't handle your ambition. I get that your work matters. I'd never ask you to choose between your company and me because that's a false choice. You can have both. Can I, though? Because the last 10 days sure didn't feel like it. The last 10 days were extreme circumstances, not normal life. Ethan took her hand. Look, I'm not saying this will be easy. You've got a company to grow, I've got a kid to raise, our schedules are chaos. But none of that means we can't make this work if we both actually want to. I do want to. That's what scared me most. I wanted to call you every night. Wanted to show up here and let you tell me it would be okay. Wanted to not be alone in this. And that vulnerability felt dangerous. Why dangerous? Because if I need you and you leave, that destroys me. Better to not need anyone. Except that's not actually better, it's just lonelier. Ethan squeezed her hand. Ava, I'm not going anywhere. Not because things are easy or because you're perfect, but because I chose this. I chose you. That doesn't change because you had a bad week. Lily appeared in the doorway. Are you guys done talking yet? Because I want to show Ava my science project. Almost, Ethan said to you. Take your time. I'll just be here waiting patiently. Lily leaned against the doorframe with exaggerated patience that lasted about 3 seconds. Okay, I can't wait. Can Ava please see my project now? Ava laughed, the first real laugh in days. Show me. They spent the next hour looking at Lily's erosion experiment, which involved way more dirt than seemed necessary, and a detailed explanation of water tables that Ava half understood. Ethan made dinner, pasta with sauce from a jar, because he'd been working doubles all week, and they ate together at the small kitchen table like a family. After Lily went to bed, Ethan and Ava sat on the couch not talking, just existing in the same space. It felt monumental after 10 days of isolation. Can I ask you something? Ava said finally. Always. Why do you believe in me this much? You barely know me. We've been dating, 3 months? That's nothing, yet you're acting like we're building something permanent. Ethan considered the question. You remember that first night, when Craig left you with the check? Unfortunately. I'd been watching your table, saw how he talked at you instead of with you, saw how you tried to be polite even though he was being terrible. When he left, my first thought was that you deserved better. Not just a better date, but better treatment generally. That's why you warned me? Part of it, but also, there was something about how you handled it. You were angry but controlled, hurt but not broken. You paid your bill, ordered real food, refused to let his behavior ruin your whole night. That resilience, that refusal to be diminished by someone else's cruelty, that's what caught my attention. So you decided I was worth knowing based on one bad date? I decided you were someone I wanted to understand better. Then you came back, and you met Lily, and you showed up when she was sick even though you had no obligation. Every interaction proved what I'd suspected. You're someone who shows up, who does what matters even when it's hard. That's rare. Ava felt tears threaten. I almost didn't show up this time, though. Almost let fear win. But you didn't. You're here. That's what counts. They talked until midnight about the breach investigation, about Vertex's attempts to suppress competition, about what came next for Luminary Tech, about Lily's upcoming birthday and whether Ava would be comfortable helping plan it, about Ethan's thoughts on maybe returning to tech work part-time once Lily was older, about building something together that wasn't just romance but actual partnership. I have an idea, Ava said as they were saying goodnight at her car, for your return to tech. Yeah? What if you consulted for Luminary Tech? Part-time, flexible hours, helping us think through user experience from a parent's perspective. You've got insights about how kids actually learn that my team doesn't have. We could use that. Ethan looked skeptical. Consulting feels like charity. It's not charity, it's recognizing talent and using it appropriately. You'd be compensated fairly, same as any consultant, and you'd be helping build something that matters to both of us. Let me think about it. Not saying no, just want to make sure it's right. Fair enough. Ava kissed him, quick and soft. Thank you for not giving up on me this week. Wasn't planning to. You're worth the wait. Driving home, Ava felt lighter than she had in days. The crisis wasn't over. They still had schools to win back, security to rebuild, legal proceedings to navigate. But she wasn't facing it alone anymore. She had Marcus as a true partner. She had her team rallying around the mission. She had Detective Park and a legal system actually fighting for them. And she had Ethan, offering a different kind of support, the kind that believed in her capacity without needing her to prove it constantly. Her phone buzzed at a red light. Text from Marcus. Just got word, 3 new schools want to join our pilot program. They heard about the Vertex situation and want to support the underdog. We might actually come out of this stronger. Ava typed back, sometimes getting knocked down is what shows people what you're made of. Deep thoughts. You okay? Getting there. See you tomorrow. The office Tuesday felt different, still busy, still stressful, but not desperate. They had momentum again, schools calling about the program, press coverage shifting from breach victim to corporate warfare survivor, Thompson scheduling a celebration dinner for closing the investment officially, small victories that added up to survival. Wednesday evening, Ethan came by the office with Lily. He'd never seen where Ava worked. Their relationship had existed mostly in his space, his life, but he showed up with his daughter and asked for a tour like it mattered to him. Ava walked them through the floor, introducing Lily to the team. Her daughter asked Marcus approximately 1 million questions about coding and software development, declared that making apps sounded way harder than her science project, and announced that when she grew up she wanted to build programs that helped animals. You'd be good at that, Marcus said seriously. We could always use people who care about making the world better. After they left, Marcus cornered Ava. That's him? The waiter you've been seeing? That's him. He's not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone less... Marcus struggled for the word. Substantial, but he's sharp. Asks good questions about our architecture. Notice things about our workflow most consultants miss. He used to run his own startup before his wife died. That makes sense. Marcus paused. You planning to keep him around? If he'll have me. Pretty sure that's not the question. Pretty sure he's already decided. Now you just have to decide if you're brave enough to build something with him. Ava thought about that conversation all week. about building something with Ethan that wasn't just romance, but actual partnership, about combining their different expertise, her tech knowledge, and his human insight into something neither could create alone. The idea she'd mentioned about him consulting had been half-formed, tentative, but the more she thought about it, the more sense it made. Friday, she pitched it to Marcus properly. What if we brought Ethan on as a user experience consultant, part-time, flexible, focused on parent and student perspectives? You want to hire your boyfriend? I want to hire someone who understands our users in ways we don't. That he's also my boyfriend is secondary. Marcus considered. What would he actually do? Review our interface designs, sit in on user testing. Help us think through how real families interact with our platform versus how we assume they do. He's been raising a kid alone for 6 years. He knows where the gaps are between what we build and what actually works. And if you break up, then we deal with that professionally, same as any employee departure. But I don't think we will. Because you're suddenly optimistic about relationships? Because we've already been through a crisis and came out stronger. That's usually the part where things fall apart. If we can survive that, we can survive most things. Marcus smiled. Okay, bring him on. But you're handling the HR paperwork. I'm not dealing with the conflict of interest forms. That evening, Ava made the offer official over dinner. Her, Ethan, and Lily at the same restaurant where everything started. The music was still terrible. The food still overpriced, but it had become their place somehow. 15 hours a week, Ava explained. Flexible scheduling around your restaurant shifts. Real salary, not token payment. Review meetings with the product team, user testing sessions, strategic planning, basically helping us remember we're building for real people, not theoretical users. Ethan looked overwhelmed. That's a real job. That's the point. We need your perspective. I wouldn't offer if we didn't. What about conflict of interest? You and me, working together. We disclose it to HR, maintain professional boundaries at work, and trust ourselves to handle it like adults. Marcus vetted the idea already. He's on board. Can I think about it? Take whatever time you need. Lily, who'd been listening with interest, spoke up. Dad, you should do it. Then you'd be helping kids learn like Ava does. That's important. It is important, Ethan agreed. I just want to make sure I can actually contribute something valuable. You already do, Ava said. Every conversation we've had about education, about how Lily learns, about what works and doesn't work in schools, that's the insight we're missing. My team is brilliant technically, but we're all coming from academic or engineering backgrounds. We need someone who's lived the parent experience. I'll give you an answer Monday, Ethan said. I want to talk to Mrs. Chen first, make sure the schedule works with Lily's routine. Fair enough. Monday he accepted. Tuesday, they did the official paperwork and onboarding. Wednesday, he sat in on his first product review meeting and within 20 minutes had identified 3 interface issues the development team had completely missed. Things that would have confused parents without technical backgrounds. How did we miss this? Marcus asked, staring at Ethan's notes. You didn't miss it. You just think like engineers. I think like someone juggling dinner and homework and bedtime while trying to check their kids' progress. Ethan pointed at another section of the interface. This navigation makes perfect sense if you understand the system architecture. For a tired parent at 9 p.m., it's gibberish. They spent the rest of the meeting redesigning the interface with Ethan's input. By the end, they had something clearer, more intuitive, better aligned with how actual families would use it. Ava watched him work and felt something shift. This wasn't just helping her boyfriend find meaningful work. This was recognizing talent and putting it where it could make a real difference. The first month of Ethan consulting went better than anyone expected. He identified pain points in user experience, suggested improvements that made the platform genuinely more accessible, and brought a perspective the team desperately needed. Parents in user testing sessions responded to the changes immediately. Suddenly, things that had been confusing became intuitive. This is what we should have been doing from the start, Marcus admitted after a particularly successful round of testing. Building with parent input, not just for parents theoretically. Better late than never, Ava said. By mid-December, 2 months after the breach, Luminary Tech had recovered most of the ground they'd lost. Schools were re-enrolling. New applications were coming in. The Series B funding was officially closed, and they'd added 5 new features directly influenced by Ethan's consulting work. all of which tested significantly better with families than their original designs. The investigation into Vertex and Richard Vance resulted in arrests and a major lawsuit. The publicity actually helped Luminary Tech's reputation. They were the scrappy underdog who'd stood up to corporate sabotage. Several larger education companies reached out expressing interest in partnerships or acquisitions. Ava declined all of them. They'd survived being small and targeted. She wasn't about to sell out now. Christmas Eve found Ava at Ethan's apartment helping Lily decorate cookies while Ethan assembled a bookshelf he'd ordered for his daughter's room. Mrs. Chen stopped by with homemade dumplings and unsolicited advice about relationships that made Ethan groan and Ava laugh. "You two are good together," Mrs. Chen said, ignoring Ethan's protests. "He smiles more. You relax more. Balance." "She's not wrong," Ethan admitted after Mrs. Chen left. "About the smiling or the balance?" "Both." Ethan finished the bookshelf, stood back to examine it. "I wasn't sure this would work. You and me are different worlds, but you've made it work." "We've made it work," Ava corrected, "both of us." Lily appeared with frosting on her face and pure joy. "Can Ava stay for Christmas tomorrow? Please? I want to show her the present I made." Ethan looked at Ava. "No pressure. I know you probably have family plans. Brunch with my parents at noon. But I could come over after?" "Yes!" Lily threw her arms around Ava. "This is going to be the best Christmas." Later, after Lily went to bed and they were cleaning up cookie debris, Ethan pulled Ava close. "Thank you." "For what?" "For staying. That first night when I told you to stay, I meant it just for that dinner. But you kept staying. Through bad dates and sick kids and data breaches and all the messy, complicated reality of actual life. That means more than you know." "You made it easy," Ava said. "Or hard. I still can't decide which." "Both. Best things usually are." She kissed him then, surrounded by cookie crumbs and Christmas lights, in an apartment that had become as much home as her own. This wasn't the life she'd planned when she moved back to Seattle 3 years ago. Wasn't the trajectory she'd mapped out when she founded Luminary Tech. But it was better, richer, more human, more real. The company she'd built was surviving. The mission she cared about was succeeding. And the man who'd warned her to stay that rainy Thursday night had become someone she couldn't imagine leaving. Sometimes the best decisions were the ones you made without planning. Sometimes showing up was enough. Sometimes staying mattered more than any strategy or optimization or perfect execution. Ava had learned that lesson slowly, reluctantly, through crisis and vulnerability and the patient persistence of a man who saw who she was and decided that was enough. She was still learning it, would probably always be learning it, but for now, standing in Ethan's kitchen planning Christmas and thinking about their future, she was grateful she'd listened that first night, grateful she'd stayed. 3 years changed everything and nothing at all. The restaurant still had terrible music, still served overpriced salmon that was actually worth it, still drew the Friday night crowd looking for somewhere between casual and impressive. But Ava hadn't been there as a customer in almost 2 years, not since Ethan had finally quit to join Luminary Tech full-time as their director of user experience. Tonight, though, they were back. "Anniversary dinner," Ethan had said, because some things deserve to be marked where they started. Lily was with Mrs. Chen, who'd insisted with the kind of firmness that meant arguing was pointless. They had the same table by the window where Ava had sat alone that first night, furious about Craig and his boat, not knowing the waiter who'd warned her to stay would become everything she hadn't known she needed. "You're smiling," Ethan said, reaching across the table for her hand. "Just thinking about how different this is. Last time we sat here as customers, you were serving me. And you were a workaholic CEO who thought needing people was weakness. I was not that bad. You were exactly that bad. Lucky for you, I saw potential." Ava laughed. "Is that what we're calling it? Potential?" "Among other things." Ethan squeezed her hand. "You know what Lily asked me this morning?" "What?" "When you were going to officially move in. Apparently having your stuff in half the closet and sleeping over 5 nights a week doesn't count as living together in her book." "What did you tell her?" "That we were working on it. That some things take time to do right." Ethan paused. "But she's not wrong. We should probably make it official." Ava felt her heart speed up. Are you asking me to move in?" "I'm saying our apartment is already yours as much as mine. Might as well make it legal. Get your name on the lease. Stop pretending you're just visiting. That's possibly the least romantic way anyone's ever proposed cohabitation. You want romance? I can talk about how I can't sleep right when you're not there, how Lily sets a third place at breakfast automatically now, how Mrs. Chen already refers to you as family, how I stopped thinking about my life and started thinking about our life somewhere between the data breach and Christmas cookies. Ethan's voice got quieter. How I'm in love with you and have been for a while now, and I'm tired of pretending this is anything less than permanent. The noise of the restaurant faded. Ava stared at him, processing words she'd been afraid to hope for. You've never said that before. The love part. I know. Was waiting for the right moment. Figured the place where we met qualified. You're really doing this? All of it. The moving in, the future, the commitment. Already did it, honestly. Just making it official now. Ethan pulled something from his pocket. A key on a simple ring. This is to the new place. The one we're buying together. Ava took the key with shaking hands. We're buying a place? Found it last week while you were in Boston for that conference. 3-bedroom in Greenwood, good schools for Lily, office space you can actually work from, backyard for the dog she's been lobbying for. I put an offer in contingent on you saying yes. Ethan, that's huge. What if I'd said no? You weren't going to say no. You've been looking at real estate listings for 6 months when you think I'm not paying attention. How did you... Browser history. You're terrible at clearing it. Ethan smiled. So is that a yes? You'll move in? Help me raise a fierce 8-year-old who wants to save every ocean animal and thinks science is more important than math? Yes. Obviously yes. Ava felt tears threaten. But I need to say something first. Okay. Yeah. I love you too. Have for months, but I was scared to say it because every time I've said it before, it ended badly. But you're not every time before. You're you. You're patient and honest, and you see me clearly, and somehow that doesn't scare you away. You're the best thing that's happened to me, and not just because you warned me about Craig's terrible personality. Ethan laughed, stood up, pulled her into a kiss that made the couple at the next table applaud. When they broke apart, he was grinning. For the record, warning you about Craig was entirely self-serving. Figured if you stayed, I'd have an excuse to talk to you. Calculated from the start. Completely. Ethan sat back down, didn't let go of her hand. So we're doing this. The house, the future, all of it. All of it, Ava confirmed. Though I'm going to need help telling Lily without her screaming loud enough to disturb the neighbors. Mrs. Chen already knows. She helped me find the place. Fair warning, she's got opinions about furniture. Of course she does. They ordered dinner, salmon for Ava, steak for Ethan, the same wine they'd shared 3 years ago. The waiter was new, young, looked at them with the polite disinterest of someone working their way through college. Nothing like Ethan had been that first night, watching tables with the careful attention of someone who'd lived enough to recognize when people needed help. You miss it? Ava asked. The restaurant work? Not even a little. Consulting part-time was good, but full-time at Luminary Tech is better. Actually building something that matters, using my brain again. I didn't realize how much I'd missed that until I got it back. The team loves you. Marcus said yesterday you've saved us from at least a dozen user experience disasters in the last year. Marcus exaggerates, but I'm good at what I do. Feels right. Their food arrived. They ate slowly, talking about everything and nothing. Lily's upcoming science fair project, the new schools joining Luminary Tech's program, whether they should get a dog before or after the move. Normal conversation between people building a life together. Unremarkable, except for how remarkable it felt to Ava. 3 years ago, she'd been eating dinner alone, furious and embarrassed, certain that work was all she needed. Now she was planning a future with a man who'd seen her at her worst and decided to stay anyway. Can I tell you something? Ethan said over dessert. Always. When Sarah died, I thought that was it for me. One shot at love, one chance at building something real, and it got taken away. I wasn't bitter exactly, just resigned. Figured I'd focus on Lily, get through each day, maybe find contentment if not happiness. He set down his fork. Then you walked in here 3 years ago, and I watched some guy treat you like you didn't matter. And when you stayed anyway, ordered real food, refused to let him ruin your night, something shifted. Made me think maybe resignation wasn't the only option. I'm glad you were working that night. Ava said quietly. Me too. Though technically I'm glad Craig was a terrible human being, which feels wrong to say. He did us a favor by being awful. Should we send him a thank you card? Absolutely not. He doesn't get credit for our happiness. Ava smiled, took another bite of the chocolate pâte de crème they were sharing. The same dessert Ethan had recommended that first night, still the best thing on the menu. Some things didn't need to change. They left around 9, walking to their cars in the same parking lot where they'd said goodbye dozens of times over the years. But tonight felt different, heavier with possibility, bright with certainty. So I'll see you at home? Ethan asked. Home. Not his apartment, not her place. Home. Ava tested the word in her mind and found it fit perfectly. See you at home. Tell Lily I've got news. She'll explode. You know that, right? She's been planning our family dynamic for months. Good. We can explode together. Ava drove back to the apartment, soon to be their old apartment, soon to be replaced by an actual house with a yard and space for all of them. She thought about that first night, how she'd sat in this same car convinced she'd never see Ethan again, that he was just a kind stranger who'd made a bad evening slightly better. How wrong she'd been, how grateful she was to be wrong. The apartment smelled like the candles Lily insisted made everything more cozy, and the dinner Ethan had clearly started before leaving for the restaurant. Ava heard voices from the living room, Lily explaining something with her usual passionate intensity, Mrs. Chen responding with patient questions. She walked in to find them looking at college brochures, because apparently 8 years old wasn't too early to plan for marine biology programs. Ava! Lily launched herself off the couch. Dad says you guys have news. What is it? Is it good? It's good, right? It's good, Ava confirmed, catching Lily mid-jump. We're buying a house, all 3 of us, together. The scream was exactly as loud as predicted. Mrs. Chen covered her ears but smiled. Ethan appeared from the kitchen, looking satisfied with himself. Does this mean you're officially my family now? Lily demanded. Like, actually official? Not just staying over a lot? Actually official, Ava said. Good, because I already told everyone at school you were basically my mom anyway, and it was getting awkward explaining the technicalities. Ava's throat went tight. Lily had never called her mom before, had always been careful to keep Sarah's memory sacred, to not replace what she'd lost. Hearing it now, casual and certain, felt like acceptance at a level Ava hadn't dared hope for. Hey, Ethan said softly to Lily. You know Ava's not replacing your mom, right? She's something different. Both can be true. I know, Dad. I'm 8, not stupid. Lily rolled her eyes with impressive preteen energy. Mom's my mom, even though I don't remember her. Ava's my mom because she's here. It's not that complicated. Mrs. Chen laughed. She's smarter than both of you combined. Listen to the child. They spent the next hour looking at photos of the new house on Ethan's phone, Lily claiming the bedroom with the best light for her future marine biology laboratory, Mrs. Chen offering to help with the move and immediately inserting herself into furniture decisions. It was loud and chaotic and exactly what family was supposed to feel like. Later, after Mrs. Chen left and Lily finally went to bed, Ava and Ethan sat on the couch in the quiet dark. You okay with what Lily said? Ethan asked. About the mom thing. I can talk to her if it's too much. Don't. It's not too much. It's... Ava struggled for words. It's everything. I never thought I'd have this. A family, a kid who wants me around, someone who sees my worst qualities and chooses me anyway. Your worst qualities aren't that bad. I'm controlling and stubborn, and I work too much and I panic when things don't go according to plan. So you're human. I'll take it. Ethan pulled her closer. Besides, you've gotten better. You let the team handle the Boston launch without you. You took an actual vacation last month. You're learning. Because you taught me, you and Lily, that showing up matters more than being perfect. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the city sounds through the window, traffic and voices, and the ordinary noise of people living their lives. In a few months, they'd be in the new house, starting a different chapter. Luminary Tech would keep growing, reaching more kids who needed what they'd built. Lily would get older, more fierce, more certain about saving the world. Life would happen with all its complications and joys and unexpected turns. But right now, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. Ava had stopped running from connection, had learned that needing people wasn't weakness but the most human thing possible. She'd built a company that mattered and a family that made the building worthwhile. She'd found a partner who saw her clearly and loved her because of it, not despite it. 3 years ago, she'd walked into a restaurant angry and alone, convinced that work was enough, that she didn't need anything more than her company and her mission. One conversation with a perceptive waiter had started unraveling that certainty. Thousands of conversations later, she'd built something better, a life that had room for both ambition and love, for professional success and personal connection, for the fierce drive that made her good at her job and the vulnerability that made her human. Ethan's phone buzzed. Text from Lily, who was supposed to be asleep. "Can we get a dog that's good at swimming for marine biology research purposes?" "She's your daughter," Ava said. "Our daughter," Ethan corrected. "You signed up for this. No backing out now." "Wouldn't dream of it." Because this, all of it, the complicated, beautiful mess of family and work and love and growth, this was what she'd been looking for without knowing it. Not perfection, but presence. Not having it all figured out, but having people to figure it out with. Not the life she'd planned, but the life she'd needed all along. And it had started with the simple choice to stay, to listen when a stranger suggested she deserved better than a man who talked about his boat for 40 minutes. To come back the next Friday, and the one after that, building something real from what could have been nothing. Sometimes the most important decisions were the ones you made without thinking. Sometimes the people who changed your life were the ones you almost overlooked. Sometimes staying was braver than leaving, and vulnerability was stronger than self-sufficiency, and asking for help was the most powerful thing you could do. Ava had learned all of that slowly, through crisis and fear, and the patient love of a man who'd rebuilt his life from tragedy and decided there was room for her in it. She was still learning, would always be learning, but she was learning with people who believed in her, who challenged her, who made her better by believing she already was. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.